Yes. You know,
Who passed away?
I have, well, two people very close to me. One, former classmate. One, a young man whom I've looked after since he was, I think, 2 years old. Mm-hmm. And then I have a colleague who lost her husband.
That's heavy.
It isn't easy. It isn't pleasant.
That is heavy.
Yes, and especially if, when you read about someone telling you their relative, but if you actually know the person, it's very, very heavy going.
It's very, very heavy.
Very, very heavy going, yes.
So your classmate was high school classmate?
He was my classmate from the time we were in Form 1.
Oh, wow.
Yes, in fact, one of the joys of the school I went to, there was something they used to offer us. When you got into Form 1, so you think you've passed your CPE and you're in Form 1, they give you another exam. Mm-hmm. If you didn't pass that exam, you're put in 1D. Now,
so the 1As are the ones.
Those
are
are guys who just don't seem to have a problem with English. It was English and maths. Mm-hmm. Now, 1D, it was known for something we called extra English.
Okay.
Yes. With hindsight, the people who ended up in 1D were just the mischievous ones. It's not that they'd already passed their CP. That's why they're in that school.
Yes.
They're just mischievous and did not see why they should be bothered with all this learning.
Hey, what is this?
The class I was in Form 1, it was 1D. Yes. Essentially, we were to be the one. It represented a certain challenge that we had with academic work. But actually, it was just English. There's a certain level that we hadn't quite attained. So he's somebody I've known since 1972. So if you do the maths, you get a very, very clear idea of how many years.
Many years, yes.
Yes. But you see, the problem is the passing away of someone like that, it sends shockwaves among his contemporaries.
Yeah.
Because we are now suddenly faced with the reality of mortality. And it also tells you that, in all honesty, sisi ni wazee.
Lazima mjichunge.
Lazima sio kujichunga peke yake, kujichunga sana.
Yes. And then the person that your son.
Yes.
The person that you've taken care of since the age of 2. That is your son.
He's my son.
Right.
Yes. He unfortunately has been unwell for some time. And he wasn't very good at looking after himself. But he had a lot of assistance. My mama mdogo helped look after him in Mombasa. He's been unwell. There are times he's gone to hospital. He's been out. But this time around, he went in, he was unwell, and he simply did not get out.
Pole sana, Siti.
Yes.
Pole sana.
Then I have a colleague whose husband has passed away.
This is heavy stuff.
Yes, it is. It is.
Is it all COVID?
No.
Okay.
Only one is actually COVID. The others are not COVID.
Okay.
The others, it's one, either it is your kidney or your liver or something, but it's not COVID related. No.
Pole sana.
You know, one of the things also that I think surprising about COVID, until it is tested, it isn't COVID that's going to kill you. It is what it enables.
It's an underlying condition.
Yes, that underlying condition, if it enables, if it weakens you adequately, it's that underlying condition that will usher you onto the next world.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. We are now seeing many more and more cases of COVID-19 in the country. CS Mutahi Kagwe made an announcement and a plea yesterday to Jishuge. The kind of jump in infections in Kenya in the last 4 weeks, in just 1 month, makes Kenya the highest with infection rate in a month in Africa.
Right.
A 40% jump. That is a very high jump.
It is. We went from a positivity rate of 3.3% at the beginning of January, and just 2 months later, now Kenya is standing at a positivity of 18.9%. It is a big deal.
It is a big deal, but the good thing that I like about the country is that we are talking about it. We are not saying it isn't what it is. We are calling this thing by its name. And we're saying that numbers have risen. We are pointing to things that we must do. And this, in my opinion, is how it is you defeat such a demon. You see it for what it is and you call it by its name. Yes. But the reality is this. The discussions we've always had among us, oh, is this COVID real? Does it actually exist? COVID is going to arrive at everyone's doorstep sooner rather than later, simply because instead of just asking the questions and being safe, we ask the questions and then we ignore the safety measures. It will kill very many people. And unfortunately, an attitude such as the one that is represented by some of these really unfortunate statements, that one took time to come out, is that by the time you are realizing the potency of it, it has harmed you greatly. And it needn't have. That's the thing, it needn't have.
It's true. Well, if we're looking at specifics of those numbers in Kenya, 1,225 new cases yesterday, and a jump by 10 to 17 new deaths in the country. Just like you say, more and more people are then being able to resonate with this because it's coming closer home. Loved ones, those that you knew, before it would look as if it was something out there and affecting people out there. But more and more you'll get to know people, stories, and it's actually coming closer home. Right, so we're looking at a positivity rate now of 18%. And the acceptable levels, what the World Health Organization then prescribed for acceptable levels of positivity rates in the country are below 4. So we're looking at 4 times that currently in Kenya. So vaccines continue. Again, looking at the numbers yesterday, about 25,000 people have been vaccinated in the country so far. We also saw some pictures yesterday of members of the public queuing outside Ministry of Health to try and get vaccines done. Now, this is another problem then when it comes to communication. Are members of the public ready to go? Should they be where did they get the information that they could then line up outside Ministry of Health? Are we starting with the general public? Or have we finished with the initial group of people then who were supposed to have been vaccinated? When it comes to frontline workers, health workers, teachers, we know that the teachers' vaccination drive is currently ongoing, security forces as well. So where did this come from? So you see this spark where people are looking to get vaccinated and feel that they can do this by going to a government office to have it done. Information.
If we're talking about, yes, there may be an absence of information, but I've been talking to colleagues of mine in 3 counties. And one of the things that seems apparent in the counties where they ply their trade is that COVID vaccinations have been rolled out. Some of them is simply for the frontline workers, meaning it's in referral hospitals, so it is within the hospitals, but it hasn't gone out to others. So if we are asking the question, has the government rolled out vaccines to the counties? It appears it is so. And if there are counties who haven't received it, maybe they can call in and tell us that they haven't seen it. But as to it being rolled out to the general public, that I do not know.
Yeah, well, I would hope that would have been announced if it was then available to members of the public generally. I would hope that would have been announced, but it hasn't been so far. What we've been told is that which has gone to counties is still for frontline workers. And I guess they're getting the information as best they can. But we still have a jittery public who wants to get it done. There are many people who want to have it and are already asking questions about where they can go to have it, even if it has not been rolled out to the general public yet.
True, but there was communication that it would, you see,
yeah,
again.
There was communication that it would just be for frontline, you know?
Yes, there was.
Yeah.
And a timetable was provided.
Yeah.
I think if you think about frontline and the number of people who are then in the frontline, if you talk about people who work in a health facility, from security to cleaner to kitchen to everybody who works in a health facility anywhere, this does not discriminate. That is saying only in public health facilities. We're talking about public health. We're talking about community health facilities. We're talking about religious run health facilities, private health facilities. That alone is a huge number.
Yes.
Then you go into teachers. Teachers, you're saying all the way from Chekechea to Kidato, Chaku.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No. What do you call university?
Chuo Kikuu.
Chuo Kikuu. That's I'm wondering. What did I just say? Yeah, from kindergarten all the way to university, all those are teaching staff. And if they're frontline workers, then we're also talking about administration in those universities.
Yes, my friend. And then you're talking about the media as well.
Then you're talking about media. So there are many people. So I guess if you say that this is where we are dealing with the frontline workers and they're coming, you'll find invariably that you'll find somebody who is not necessarily that kind of a frontline worker finding themselves in the queue. Passing by, like people are passing by campsite, passing by and you see a queue and you're like, what's happening here?
That's just
Vaccine. Okay, join the queue. And you go
Which
in.
is what we saw in those pictures yesterday,
you,
essentially.
you go in and you basically are able to get the vaccine and you say, hey, I got it.
But even in the counties, people are getting it.
Yes. That's the
But what I know for a fact is that people who are in my age bracket are getting it in the counties. I know friends in Embu who have got it. I know friends in Kisumu who are trying to get it.
It's a wait-see. It is a wait-see. All right. Let's look at the continent of Africa then now in terms of what's going on with COVID. The continent in general has 4,035,708 confirmed cases. Active cases around the continent, and the 54 countries that we are looking at, 307,590. 3,620,340 people have recovered from COVID, and there have been 107,778 confirmed deaths from COVID. So looking at the coronavirus in Africa tracker, South Africa is the country that has the highest in terms of COVID-19 infections. So over 1.5 million cases in South Africa. And if we look specifically at that, so 1,521,420 cases. We also saw, unfortunately, from those cases, there are quite a number of deaths, but
51,000 deaths. Did I say something like that?
Yes, 51,000 deaths in South Africa, and we were looking then at recovered cases of 1.4 million, right? So Africa, yes, taking South Africa rather taking the hardest hit when it comes to COVID-19. So still looking at some countries for which there's no data concerning COVID. Tanzania, yes, is one of them. Western Sahara is another one. But everybody seems, again, to have recorded, here and there in terms of cases, but nobody except South Africa having crossed that 1 million mark. All right? Plus, also, in terms of recording and reporting of what has happened, I think some people have been quite lax in terms of, some countries have been quite lax in terms of giving the actual numbers that they do have. But, there is presence of COVID around the continent, but still, again, and to the wonderment of many, the numbers are still considerably low.
Wow.
Right.
Okay. So we'll be looking at the headlines shortly and also looking at then what the LCS Mutahi Kagwe is saying. He appeared before a Senate committee yesterday and he was also speaking about what exactly is happening in terms of COVID-19. So we'll be looking at that shortly. Let's first take a break and see what the weather is going to look like in various parts of the country and the world today. And as we do that, remember today is the second day of the Magical Kenya Open, part of the European Tour doubleheader that's taking place in the country between now and next week, Friday. So today and yesterday, today until Sunday, the 21st, we have the Magical Kenya Open taking place at the Current Country Club. A €1 million cash prize for the winner, and very many international golfers in the country taking part in participating in this. You cannot go to Current Country Club to watch this as a spectator, but you can do this on KTN News and on standard digital platforms. This tournament is supported by Safaricom, by Wilkin Wireless, Sports, Arts and Social Development Fund, the Current Country Club, Johnny Walker, Keringet and Hemingways. So keep it right here. Watch the tournament as it unfolds on KTN News and the standard digital platform. Good morning.
(24/7) around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. The realest and craziest couple are now on your screens. Terrence and Chebi are bringing you top celebrities and trendsetters on Thursday Night Live. It's double the fun and double the laughter every Thursday at 10 p.m. on KTN Home.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and
All right, cloudy conditions
nostalgic
in Nairobi this
ballads.
Friday. There's a chance of rain later, going to highs of 27 today, lows of 17. It's raining already in Nyeri at 13, highs of 24 and lows of 14. Clear conditions in Nakuru at 15, highs of 27 and lows of 14. It's clear in Eldoret at 12, highs of 25 and lows of 13. 31 will be the high in Kisumu, where it's mostly cloudy this morning at 19. Kakamega is mostly cloudy at 16, going to highs of 30 and lows of 15 today. 33 will be the high in Mombasa. Light rain at 26. It's also raining in Malindi at 27, highs of 32 and lows of 26. Mostly cloudy conditions in Kampala this morning, giving way to rain later, highs of 27 and lows of 19. It's clear in Dar es Salaam at 24, highs of 31 and lows of 25. Clear conditions in Johannesburg at 17 rather, highs of 26 and lows of 14. It's mostly clear in Lagos this morning at 25. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 25. Kinshasa rings in Friday with heavy thunderstorms at 24. We'll see highs of 32 and lows of 23. It's sunny in Beijing on the other side of the planet. We'll see highs of 11 today and lows of 4. Cloudy conditions in Paris at 5, highs of 9 and lows of 1. Cloudy in London as well at 7. It'll go to highs of 11 and lows of 3. And it's raining in New York still Thursday night. Coming into Friday morning, we'll see highs of 11 and lows of -1.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
19 minutes after
94
6. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. People are online already and saying hello to us.
Yes, Kev Santana says, good morning, listening live from Nanyuki. That is one place I've always wanted to go to, and I think I will do it very soon. Nanyuki.
Mwisho ya reli.
I want to go. I want to go to Nanyuki. Okay.
All right. Okay. Governor Derito Murithi has heard you and he's extending that invitation again. Like for the 10th time. To you, Ndu. Come and visit Nanyuki.
I think I might just take him up on that one. Master Dan says, good morning, great people. Beijing is right in the Situation Room. Washira Wilfred says, hey, CT Ndu and Erica, good morning. Waking to savor the flavor of spices. Gishugo is bright as always. Fantastic.
No way.
Waterman Jeffries tuned in this morning from Hennepin County. And Robert Mbogo says, good morning, everybody. Well tuned in from Mombasa. Glad to have you guys all in the room this morning as we get into things. Karibuni sana.
Karibuni, everybody. City. Today's proverb.
Yes, indeed. Today's proverb.
Right.
You know, one of the things about proverbs is you actually wonder.
You don't get them when you want them.
No, you do get them because you know where you left them, but somehow you read it and you know I plan to say this today, and you look at the day and you wonder, how relevant is this? Anyway, this is the proverb I prepared for today. Despite the beauty of the moon, sun, and the stars, the sky also has the threatening thunder and striking lightning. Despite the beauty of the moon, sun, and the stars, the sky also has the threatening thunder and striking lightning.
Okay. It's beautiful and it's dangerous at the same time.
That, my friend, is life. It is beautiful as it is dangerous.
Okay. Okay. So you looked at that and you thought it's appropriate for the day.
I'd planned for it. I said I'm not changing it. This is something I'd planned the week before last.
What makes it appropriate for the day?
Well, you see, when you first read it, it seemed like, okay, so moon, stars, we forget that one.
Yeah.
Sky, we also understand they're all in the sky. Threatening thunder, lightning.
Lightning.
The commonality is they're all in the sky. Okay? But these elements, the moon, people consider it beautiful. It's at night, it shines a light. they sometimes forget it's actually reflecting a light, it's not shining it. And then there's the sun, we understand the sun, then we understand the stars. But that same sky with all this beauty also has threatening thunder, because when you hear thunder, it doesn't matter what you say about it, it sounds threatening. The boom, boom, heavy, heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And then lightning, okay? Yes, and you also get the impression this thing, if it hits you, you are going to be conversing with your ancestors. So, yes. So, is this not a representation of life? Okay? And the fleeting beauty of it, it's there, it's beautiful, it's wonderful, and it is life.
Indeed it is.
Yes. Live and learn and live with the contradictions that represent life.
So let's take a look at the headlines.
Okay. Still looking at what's going on with the results of the death of John Pombe Magufuli. On the front page of the Standard, tragic tale of Magufuli, flawed genius is what he's been called. And there's coverage on 234 through until 12 today. From the boy who strutted his small frame on the shores of Lake Victoria to the bullish man who bestrode Tanzania like a colossus, dishing out instant justice. John Pombe Magufuli was a contradiction in terms, admired by his people, but loathed abroad. He fit the description of a hero and villain merged into one. The world mourns a man who sacrificed science for pride. So Kenya's message came from Uhuru Kenyatta. President Uhuru Kenyatta mourns illustrious African leader and orders flags to fly at half-mast until after Magufuli's burial. Ties that bind. Raila Odinga's family says it has lost a friend who has been with them in difficult and painful moments, evoking their long-standing friendship. Artists unite. Hours after Magufuli's death, a dozen musicians put aside their differences and took to the studio to record tribute songs for the fallen hero, amongst them one of CT's favourite artists, Diamond Platinum. President Tubi. All eyes on Samla Suluhu Hassan, the vice president set to become the new head of state and first female president of Tanzania. It's interesting that with his death, there's so many things now that are happening at the same time. As a result of his death, a lot of things are going on. We saw the pictures in the streets of Tanzania yesterday, people wailing at the side of the road as the vehicles then, came into town, and people wailing not as a show, but were honestly, grief-stricken at the death of this man. And it was not just in one town, it was across the country. And there were people then who were saying, yes, in whichever way in which he was seen, we are actually at a loss. And this that was covered here in terms of artists putting down their differences to come together to then pen down tributes and then come up with songs that they could sing. At the same time, then we saw Suluhu in very quick meetings, and what was one of the things that they had done immediately, herself and the people around her put on face masks. And without saying a word, that was just then one message that went out very clearly about one of the things that she might actually embrace as she begins. So that's one story now that's on page 2 that we can look at. The real test of the real test of Samia Suluhu Hassan's leadership came 3 weeks ago when rumors started on social media that Tanzania's president John Magufuli was gravely ill. As she tried to assure Tanzania and the whole world that all was well, every appearance she made on national television injected more suspicion on Magufuli's health. It also inadvertently illuminated Ms. Suluhu from the background she had operated from for the last 5 years to the country's vice president. It is with deep regret, she said, and I quote, that I inform you today we lost our brave leader, the President of the Republic of Tanzania, John Pombe Magufuli, she announced. And with that statement, it became apparent that she is taking over as Tanzania's next president at a time when there are rising deaths from the COVID-19 pandemic that the late Magufuli denied in his last breath. To his last breath, rather. Suluhu's entry into Tanzania's government was unexpected. As a Zanzibari and Muslim woman, she came into the leadership somewhat carrying the weight of having to prove a point in mainland Tanzania that battled male chauvinism and flickers of religious mistrust between the two regions. So, yesterday when we spoke about in some countries where the North and the South take it, in Tanzania, we have the
mainland
shift
and
between
island.
The mainland and the island, and we also have the shift between religion. We have seen that there has been shift between the presidency, Muslim, Christian, Muslim, Christian. Now here's a woman who is coming in and taking on the presidency with so many things previously chalked up against her. But now, here she is in the limelight. So with his death, so many things are going on. Bringing in a Muslim woman, one thing that has never happened before, as now new president of Tanzania. Never happened in the country before. At the same time, people are uniting on different grounds to have certain messages put across. So, with his death comes many things.
Can I ask this question? Does it really matter what we think? Or should we consider what the people of Tanzania thought of him? Because clearly, he's missed.
My friend.
Oh no, that's what I'm telling you. Did you see the crime that was going on in the streets of Tanzania yesterday? And it wasn't fake. These are people who are grief-stricken.
Not just in Tanzania, even in this country. Listen to remember the calls that we had here
My
yesterday?
friend.
Look at the messages that we've seen on social media. Okay? So, it doesn't matter really, not what we know what we think. It doesn't matter what the West wants to portray of
Or what
Magufuli.
they want to say or what they have said.
What they want to portray of Magufuli. It doesn't matter.
You see,
And the people who he represented are the ones that matter.
if you are looking at Magufuli's legacy, we talked about it briefly yesterday, ask yourself the sort of leader people want. Here you have it.
Yes.
You see, he died, yes. We are conjecturing and saying it's possible COVID-related. But this man lived by his dictates.
Yes.
He didn't believe certain things. He didn't wear the mask. There's no day he wore that mask.
Yeah.
He didn't. There are those who will say, well, the end has come. But the man clearly had principles and he lived by them. Something our leaders could borrow.
Story on the BBC, eulogizing the man, basically just looks at, so is it about time that Tanzanians considered having strong institutions as opposed to strong men?
You know, this nonsensical idea that the West have this magical mantra for what a democracy is. Their history is laid bare before us. Do you know how many coups, counter coups, killings? Do you know the turmoil they went through before they arrived at this democracy that they currently have? We have fast-forwarded our processes. Compared to them, we are doing fantastically well. And who says that they're the ones who should dictate what sort of democracy we must have?
Institutions are better than personalities.
Institutions, again, we do have institutions, okay? We have one institution that they don't seem to favor very much. It's called a family institution.
Yes.
All right? Ensuring that you look after the infirm and family. They have situations where it is their government that looks after the infirm and their family. So the government is their family.
The government is the grandchildren, is the children and grandchildren
Yes.
that looks after you.
Yes, exactly. Huh? Now, you are telling us that you are the people who have a close relationship with an inanimate object called a government, and then you want to compare it with other people who actually have.
Okay, it's 6:30. Let's take this break and see what's happening on the roads this early morning, and then we look at more headlines. Good morning.
Spice FM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they are getting per year, how much inconvenience they are causing. As much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, let's look at what's going on
Traffic.
Jidero this morning from Lango Kubwa towards Pangani. Traffic lights, it's actually going very, very smoothly today. We don't have much in terms of traffic there. Mombasa Road is piling up slowly. Today's the day where most schools close. So there's a lot of traffic this morning coming off Mombasa Road, coming off of Thika Road as well, as you then try to join the Thika Superhighway from Kiambu Road. Coming down, it's moving along slowly from Safari Park out through into the city. Very slow, but it's moving without an issue right now. Not a bumper-to-bumper situation just yet. We're probably going to see some outbound traffic as well. We'll take a look at what will be going on in a short bit. But for now, it looks manageable, at least for most parts of the city. We don't see anything that jumps out at us just yet. If it does, be sure to let you know. You let us know as well so that we can try and see how we can make it easier moving this morning. All right, SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. SpiceFM.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done
The
right.
nation has gone back to the story. Remember, they were the first to hint that Magufuli was in Nairobi, being treated at the Nairobi hospital.
And then what did they do? The information they first released?
They said president of an African country.
Country.
No, leader.
Oh, leader, not president, leader.
Leader of an African country is hospitalized in Nairobi. Now, they've actually come out here and said, okay, so here is what happened. The vice president told us that Magufuli was first taken to hospital on the 6th of March and discharged on the 7th of March. Nation says that he was discharged from a hospital in Tanzania and flown to Nairobi on the 8th of March. He was brought to Nairobi in the darkness of night via an air ambulance hired from Wilson Airport and a second plane that was carrying his entourage, his security detail, and close members of his family. They were brought in, very, very high diplomatic level talks between the two governments, making sure that the information is well contained. Even senior officials in the Foreign Affairs Ministry were not aware of this. Only select people in the National Security Advisory Committee and the NIS were aware. So plane landed at Wilson Airport at night. Then he was taken to Nairobi Hospital, where he was taken to the North Wing, the presidential wing. He was treated there. He was intubated. This is on page 4 and 5 of The Nation. He was intubated. Then he basically was had to be flown back into Tanzania because doctors determined that he could not be resuscitated. So he was flown back to TZ last week. When now he was taken to TZ, he was taken to the hospital in TZ. That's when the life support was basically switched off and the announcement was made. What the nation is saying is the last days of John Pombe Magufuli, fell ill, taken to a Tanzanian hospital. Doctors there thought, okay, he needs better care. We need to try and take him to South Africa. They were like, South Africa, the number of hours is going to take us to South Africa, too long. Nairobi is nearer. Organized to come to Nairobi. He arrived in Nairobi. He could not be resuscitated at Nairobi. They determined, okay, can't be helped. Just take him back home and make the final decision and final plans. So in other words, Dr. Magufuli died in Nairobi, according to The Nation, quoting various sources. We'll be having a conversation about this with one of our senior editors at the Standard Group this morning on media coverage of this particular rumor around John Magufuli. And now this kind of confirmation coming at this point. At what point do you tell a story in public interest? At what point do you further what is being considered a rumor? At what point do you come out to actually say, look, what we are saying, we want to stand by what we are saying. We have credible sources.
And at what point, Eric, do we determine the sort of headline that should preface an article? Because oftentimes, we complain about what we call misleading headlines.
Yeah.
For instance, I have a serious beef with this summary of flawed genius.
Whose summary is that?
Our summary, it's in the Standard.
The Standard
headlines.
sum-
Yes, from the boy, all that is understandable, admired, loathed abroad, true, he fit the description of a hero and a villain, merged into one.
Just read it.
It's dramatic.
Just read it again for those who are.
From the boy who strutted his small frame on the shores of Lake Victoria to the bullish man who bestrode Tanzania like a colossus, dishing out instant justice, John Pombe Magufuli was a contradiction in terms. He was not a contradiction in terms, as far as I can see. Admired by his people, but loathed abroad. True. He fit the description of a hero and a villain merged into one. The world mourns a man who sacrificed science for pride. Not true.
What is not true? He did not sacrifice, or the world is not mourning.
He did not sacrifice science. You see, there is a narrative, and again, this one seems to be coming from the West. I have listened to both the things that the president, the immediate late president of Tanzania said with regards to COVID. The thrust of his message was, don't trust everything that comes from the West 100%. And don't think that anything that comes from the West, including this vaccine, is the thing that is going to help you. Yesterday, we had a Tanzanian journalist who is now domiciled in Sweden telling us those are messages that came towards the end. He changed the tone of his messaging. I am saying this. Yes, he presented himself as somebody who was anti the acknowledgement of the existence of COVID. Not true. He presented himself as someone who was anti any procedures and processes against safety measures for COVID. Yes, he rallied again. What on earth do you think those boiling chambers that they set up in Tanzania, chambers were for?
I was going to say,
Sorry.
my good Lord, boiling chamber.
I'm pleasantly surprised this morning because of the way you're speaking, City Muga.
Why are you surprised?
These are the things I've been saying. Okay, you continue.
Is someone not allowed to agree with you? Is someone not allowed to
That's why I said
even
it's
change his
pleasant.
mind at a certain point in time?
I said it's pleasant.
Just
continue.
Don't worry. Just carry on.
Allow me that moment.
No.
Do come
It's a precious moment. It doesn't come often.
It doesn't come often.
So
but
okay.
Okay.
it's once. It's a once in 2 years moment.
Okay. You're celebrating, Abi?
Yes.
Okay.
Go on, City. So,
So what I'm saying is this. It is true. His pronouncements and the understanding of it has led to a lot of terrible things that need not have happened in Tanzania. It is a fact. It is true. But the other side of this particular coin is this. This is a man who actually lived by the things he said. He wasn't flip-flopping. He wasn't contradicting himself. He kept saying what he had been saying. He lived by the dictates of what he said. And one could say he paid the ultimate price for it.
Yeah.
And that's why I said the flip-flopping that we're accustomed to in this country, with leaders saying this.
stark contrast.
Absolute. They preach wine, they drink water. They preach water, they drink wine. This guy preached water, drank water.
Yeah. There's also the other thing. If you listen to many of the clips, and now, when you start listening back to what Magufuli used to say, it comes out very clearly. He was a deeply religious man.
He was.
Deeply religious man. In everything he would say, tumtangulize Mungu. Put God first. In everything, just put God first. If God wills for you to die today, you will die. All right? And for somebody who knew that he had a weak heart for over 10 years, was dealing with a pacemaker and all, this is somebody who knew, okay, I am here because it's God. And he's basically saying, I'm leaving it all to God. Okay? That's one. Second is what he was doing with religion in Tanzania is what global leaders do with religion. They know when religion is very, very, very close to the masses, ride on religion and use religion to rally the masses to where you want them to go. We see that. We see that in this country. We've seen that in America with Trump. We've seen in all countries around the world. You see, when you see there's a religious grouping of people, you want to rally them. Magufuli was doing the same, appearing in church constantly mentioning, God and his faith. But I think the difference here is that Magufuli was first and foremost a very deeply religious person, that he believed that what he was saying was not just playing catch-up and playing political games with the people because he can see, okay, you guys want to hear religion, I'm going to ride this wave. He believed it.
But you can see by his actions. You see, people don't mourn the way Tanzanians are mourning for someone who is merely speaking. Human beings have a very clear understanding of someone who's playing them. It's not that they don't know, they do know. Okay? But if you talk about a people's president, this man was. And true to form, he had flaws, and he must have flaws.
Yeah.
A leader without flaws shouldn't lead. No, sincerely.
A perfect leader doesn't
No, he
exist.
should not lead, because how then do we know that this is a person who will be in touch with the failings of other people when he himself or she themselves claim that they have none?
He himself or she himself.
He himself or she himself?
No, she themselves.
Don't worry, it's all good. Just lump us
You can't say she
everywhere.
herself.
No, she
It
himself.
wasn't the forefront of my mind.
Okay.
The patriarchy
we
is real.
We will talk Magufuli throughout the show today. What other headlines do we have?
So I think it's a great thing. The president has wished all candidates, best wishes as they go into exams coming out. And I think it's something that's done often, but somehow this seems to stand out to me this year. So there's two that have come out where he says, look, I'm wishing you guys the best. It's come from a very tough year. You've been out of school for some time, and now we're going into exams. We're changing the system. All things are happening. So coming from him, a heartfelt message to all candidates this year as they start their exams on Monday. And so it seems that the hiccups that we were seeing at the beginning of the week, they seem to be smoothed out a little bit now, and the exams will start on Monday. It's all systems go. Everything is in place, and the prayers are up for all students who will be going into their exams starting Monday. And so for the next 4 weeks, we'll be in exam mode, and we'll see what comes out as a result of that.
Okay. We wish all the candidates all the best in the exams as they begin their exams today. It's indeed been a tough year, and we can only wish them the best.
Eric, today's rehearsals.
You know
Today's
what?
rehearsals,
I just wanted to
Exams
read
begin on Monday.
On Monday, yeah. I just wanted to read something that he said in his message, and I think it was interesting. He says, examinations aren't an end to themselves, and I have said in the past, no matter the outcome, I truly hope that you will not give up on your dreams and aspirations. I promise you that my administration will continue developing mechanisms to enable you reach your goals. I hope that as you mark this milestone in your life, you will ground yourselves in values that last. Values of honesty, hard work, respect and service to others, responsibility, fairness, generosity, and patriotism. As you develop these values for yourself, do so for your friends in school and your communities at home as well. It is that sense of community that has seen us through the last tough year, and the same will see us through many years to come. Keep working hard and keep making us proud. His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta.
Fantastic. Very good message.
I think so.
Now, yesterday we talked about MPs who had been recalled to a special sitting because the government needed money to continue operations, okay? And they were required to come in and debate and hopefully pass the mini budget. And this is the supplementary budget. So they came in. And just true to form, and the way they had said is, if there's no CDF in this thing that you're bringing, just go back with it.
Forget it.
They actually did that. They staged a walkout, which suspended sittings for 45 minutes in Parliament yesterday because they said, so this whole thing, where's our money? There's been 41 billion shillings that's allocated to CDF in the financial year, right? But because of this and that, this and the other, this and those, money has not been disbursed fully. So 30 billion shillings has been disbursed so far. So CDF, 100 million shillings per constituency, has not been to 100 million shillings per constituency. And the supplementary budget was not talking about how they're going to bridge the gap. So MP said, hey, boss.
Hold on a minute.
Mumetuzoea sana. First of all, in the previous financial year, you did not even finish giving us the entire 100 million shillings. Now you want to go again with an entire 13 billion shillings in arrears? Absolutely not. So this had to be amended. 13.7 billion shillings CDF covering the remaining 2 months and the 3 months, or the money that has not been sent, and the previous year's, financial year's arrears was included, and now they passed the 80 billion shillings supplementary budget. So the government has authority to spend for the next coming months.
You know, I am glad you've brought this up. Our parliament has never been toothless. They have rendered themselves toothless
Yeah.
when it suits their purposes. Again, you could argue the CDF is for their constituency, but it is because the members of your constituency are the ones who elect you.
Yes.
And these CDFs helps you bolster your chances of being re-elected.
For sure. And how
Not
you
that your
expend
people are,
it.
yes, not that your people are starving and they're suffering. No. You have an election to think of,
Yep.
and in the absence of CDF,
You have nothing to run
yes, you have nothing to utilize to show your people that you're working for them.
or even build your kitty for the
Or
next
be-
campaign.
It is actually building the kitty by any other name. Yes. Helping your people, building your kitty.
Building your kitty.
Yes.
Getting several contracts here and there so that the money can come into your account so you prepare yourself for the next campaigns. Right, basically saying, we are fundraising, boss. Where is the money? I had budgeted that in my next campaigns, I'm going to have at least, by the time to Malize, 100 million shillings for 5 years, 500 million shillings. Out of that 500 million shillings, I'll make sure the contracts are blah, 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 250. Now, here you are. You're refusing to send money.
And my constituents will tell you of this road that they had that didn't have tarmac.
Or that bridge called a culvert.
Exactly.
Did you
And
see
I
the
saw that
tweets?
bridge called a culvert.
Or the greatest building in Africa called a toilet.
Yes.
Yes, that sanitary institution. Okay? Or, when I say tarmac, paint it black at night.
Yes.
It is tarmac.
But it's just corrugation.
Yes.
So, yes, true,
Sheesh.
City. Our parliament has teeth to bite and huge chunks of flesh.
Yes.
But they just basically don't. Even here, you will find that just because what they were focused on is where is our CDF. The rest, whether you're spending money, whether they did not even take a critical
No,
look
we
at-
will sign.
We will,
CDF.
as long as you give us money, we will sign. What
All
do
they
you
were
want?
looking for was the CDF. CDF
Yes.
is there. Anything else you want?
The rest, we actually, if you ask members of parliament, many of them will not tell you what this 80 billion shilling
Where it goes
supplementary
to.
budget is all about.
By the way, even if you ask yourself, remember who asked this question, and Eric, you're the one who brought this up. Some of these bills that are brought to parliament, it's like a special purpose vehicle. There's what they're telling you, but there are riders that they've added to it that are not being spoken of loudly.
Yeah.
So you pass this one, man, you pass the others as well. Pop, you suddenly find it's in law, and
Kinda
you ask,
slip them
yeah,
in.
and you're asking, how on earth did this thing get into law?
In as much as you're looking at it on one side where they're saying what they're looking for is that CDF part, it could also be clear that the crafters of this make sure the CDF is there and it enables them to slip all these other things in at that time.
Yes.
Because they know very well that members of parliament, the thing that's going to make them bite, the bait is the CDF. And they know for a fact that they're not going to be looking at all these other things. So they slip it in there and then you ask questions later, but guess what? It's
It
already
went.
done.
In fact, there's somebody who even said that whole drama, yesterday's drama, was scripted. Sending the supplementary budget do not include CDF. You know very well that they will ask for it. So send it without. So they ask for it. So that is what occupies the
Their
debate.
minds, right.
That is what occupies. Remember, it's only one day to pass 4 bills. That is what occupies the debate. Oh, where is our CDF? Where is our CDF? Okay, now add the CDF. You don't have enough time now to look at what else is
You've
on this
added the
supplementary
CDF.
budget.
Pass.
Quisha.
And the people who do
Games.
those things, my friend, are polished.
Oh, yes.
They know the minds of these MPs.
Yes, no.
They know their priorities, and they also know how do we want this thing passed.
It's like a dog and a bone.
Fanya namna hii. Yes. And then they watch the choreography to the T.
To the T.
To the lifting of the toe and the lifting of the hand and the butting of the eyelid. Done.
And then they just cheers.
Yes.
Later in the evening, like kabisa.
Yes.
That one, this time it went very well.
We have worked for our people.
Yes.
We've gotten them CDF.
10 minutes to 7. Let's take a quick break, and then we come back and look at other headlines. Good morning.
Have you seen them? Am I like?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Wasingishu was asking me what channel is SpiceFM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
What
you.
a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
So, family rivalry and 2022 succession politics at the center of the Machakos poll. You know there's a poll going on, eh? There's an election that's about to happening.
By election for senator.
Yes.
Right.
So, caught up in the dramatic family rivalry, succession politics, and the people in pursuit of representation, the Machakos senatorial race yesterday proved a do-or-die contest whose results will make political statements. There was low turnout that marked the poll, and it saw rivalry between former Senator Johnston Muthama and his divorced wife, Agnes Kavindu, play out as Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka sought to defend this political turf. Although there were 8 candidates in the race for the seat that fell vacant after the death of Senator Boniface Kabaka, the contest was reduced to a 2-horse race between Wiper's Kavindu and Urbanus Ngengele of the United Democratic Alliance, UDA, party allied to Deputy President William Ruto. Of course, we had to throw that name in there. On Tuesday, former Cabinet Minister Mutua Katuku dropped out of the race with the statement from the Maendeleo Chap party, and Machakos Governor Alfred Mutua claiming that they had been prevailed to do so by President Uhuru Kenyatta. The governor called it a strategic move, but it is believed that his rivalry with Kalonzo could not allow him to support Kavindu after Katuku's withdrawal. Yesterday, the National Assembly Deputy Minority Whip and Kathiani MP Robert Mbui said the withdrawal was a scheme by the governor to aid the UDA candidate and complicate things for Wiper. Sheesh. It reminds me of... she said, who said, he did, why. That's what it kind of looks like here, back and forth.
So that Chap was withdrawing its candidate so that people can support the UDA person.
Yes.
So that they can complicate Wiper's
chances at the poll. Yes. Do you see?
Nice long.
So because you don't like me, because I don't like you, I also don't want somebody else to like you. And so therefore, we are going to join. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, essentially, is what we're looking at here.
Classic.
You know, whatever else we say, Kalonzo Musyoka is considered to be the leader in that region of the country. It doesn't matter what you say
or feel.
It doesn't matter what you feel or think or even know. The people of Ukambani consider him to be their leader. They are the leaders, but he comes out on top. So now, whether it is that particular perspective will hold sway, we will see in the coming elections, won't we? Yes, we will see. We will see. Because this is where the proof of the pudding. We've had serious men and women coming from that particular region who have vied for top positions. And there are those the people haven't quite shared that particular enthusiasm with them, as was manifested by the lack of votes thereof.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's wait and see.
Can I give you another story?
Yes.
Now that I'm on a roll. Lawyers ask court to dismiss cases against the BBI process. There's still the BBI, remember that thing? So, Parliament and the electoral body yesterday urged the High Court to dismiss petitions challenging the BBI constitutional amendment process, a day after the IEBC told Parliament that some proposals in the BBI were unconstitutional. Its lawyers yesterday told the High Court to dismiss the case. IEBC, through its chair Wafula Chebukati, was critical of the proposal to allocate 70 new constituencies envisaged in the amendments. But yesterday it called for the dismissal of the petitions. So initially they were saying we're opposed to this. Yesterday they now said all these petitions against the BBI, please, we're asking that you drop them. The electoral body's lawyers made submissions before a bench of Justices Joel Ngugi, George Odunga, Jairus Nga, Chacha Mwita and Teresia Maveka, sitting in Nakuru County.
Okay. So this case is before court are challenging the IEBC's, basically saying IEBC should not have taken this thing to the county assemblies.
Yes.
And should also not hold a referendum. Yes. So I can understand the lawyer saying, no, come on. IEBC, in terms of following the law, we followed the law. And Wafula Chebukati now going to Parliament and saying, in our opinion, some of these things are not right. I do not understand why we would say a constitutional amendment would be unconstitutional. I don't get it. Maybe it's a reporting issue. If we are saying that let's amend the constitution and add 78 constituencies, how is that unconstitutional? How would the new constituencies become unconstitutional if they're in the constitution?
Which is now being amended.
Eric, do you recall the discussion we had about the individuals who had top organs within the country, constitutional bodies, and I was talking about we never know them until they're elected and they go through the process. Let me bring Chebukati into this discussion, right? He's a lawyer by training.
Yes.
At what point did he realize all this?
Yeah.
All what?
That
These things that he's bringing about, at what point?
Now,
he's been silent all along.
all this time,
Should this not have come up earlier? As this thing was going on, say, folks, you know this thing that you're doing, you need to get your ducks in a row here before you actually do A, B, C, D.
I think I remember Chebukati actually, an IEBC releasing its memorandum to the BBI task force, and some of these issues they had raised.
You know something? How many people issued memorandums to the BBI secretary?
That is it.
Yeah, we don't know. It's not what. How many other things do they issue that we don't know about? He's talked about it now. He should have talked about it then.
Even then, he did.
How loudly, Eric?
Even then, they did. You see, they were drowned out by you. The ship has sailed.
Eric, when you raise something as a constitutional body, do you then have the powers to do something else?
You can challenge it in court.
Precisely. My point exactly. And as they say, I rest my case.
Case rests.
Case rested.
The prosecution rests. The Teacher Service Commission is making some moves. Big moves.
Some more?
Big moves. Deputy heads of mixed schools who are of the same sex with the principal will be transferred and replaced with those of the opposite gender from next month.
Read again, please.
So it's a mixed school.
Okay.
Boys and girls, same school, right? Principal and deputy principal, headmaster and deputy headmaster, same gender. They say, no. We must have 50-50.
So if in a mixed school, we must have mixed gender also at the top.
Yes.
Okay.
Makes
So
sense.
from next month, they're saying, so that we balance this, this is what is going to happen. The policy of the commission is to appoint and deploy administrators of applicable gender to head and deputize learning institutions. However, it has come to the attention of the commission that some mixed schools or institutions have heads and deputies of the same gender. This scenario neither fosters a gender-inclusive learning environment nor provides a supportive atmosphere for the learners. This circular was released earlier and it was addressed to regional heads, and it's instructing them to ask county directors to identify mixed schools and other learning institutions where the head and deputy are of the same gender and place the deputies appropriately after the forthcoming national exams.
Okay.
Make sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And needless to say, there are schools who already have that balance. Yes, they're just ensuring that every school has it.
Every school must have this as the balance. And instead of transferring the head, you basically look at, okay, the deputy, you're the one who's not going to be transferred. And a deputy of the opposite gender is brought to this particular school. Keep it right here. In the next hour, we have conversations. Head back into Tanzania. Look at the legacy of John Pombe Magufuli, the years, the mourning that's happening in Tanzania, and what the vibe is from TZ to the country globally about John Pombe Magufuli. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It is the Situation Room. We always love the fact that you are tuned in every weekday morning, and we'd like you to participate in the conversation by calling in 0719-012-600 or posting your comments on SpiceFM KE, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, where we are live streaming. Good morning. It's now 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru. Traffic.
Okay, unfortunately, a bus has rolled and blocked one lane of the Nairobi-Murang'a highway at Blue Post. Completely blocked the exit to Gatanga. There's heavy traffic experience in that section, Murang'a bound. There's a rescue team on site, however, and they're trying to sort that one out. So if you're headed out in that direction, just know that that is what lies up ahead. Please be very careful. There is traffic on Mombasa Road today, outbound and inbound as well. The issue at Airtel seems to be sorted out at least a little bit. Let's keep an eye on that and see how that happens today so that we don't have so much drama coming from the Likoni exchange. Should it happen, let us know. We're also looking at traffic coming off of Thika Road. So in and outbound on Thika Road today, we have a problem, especially because of that accident that's happened, Murang'a bound. today. Keep us informed about what you may see. We'll also let you know where you should stay away from. Industrial area, if you're headed in that direction. Enterprise Road, Likoni, Lunga Lunga. It's going to slow you down some because so many things happening at the same time. There's traffic coming from Mombasa Road, which has affected industrial area, which has affected Likoni at the exchange. So we have a problem there. Let's keep an eye on things as we open up into the morning. SpiceFM KE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter. You can text us as well on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room. The only way.
2.5 minutes after 7 a.m. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's The Situation Room. Thank you very much for joining us. We are also now live on KTN Home for the next 2 hours. In addition to being live on SpiceFM, as we are every weekday morning, 94.4 in Nairobi, Malindi is 97.7, Nakuru 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, 102.5 in Kisumu, 87.9 in Mombasa, and Nyeri 90.9. We live stream the show as well on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and www.spicefm.co.ke. CT Muga, proverb.
Despite the beauty of the moon, sun, and the stars, the sky also has threatening thunder and striking lightning.
Thunder and thunder. Despite, it's a long one.
The beauty. There have been longer ones. There have been longer ones. One which you actually wonder, okay, is this guy reading to us a story or is he giving us a proverb? Despite the beauty of the moon, sun, and the stars, the sky also has threatening thunder and striking lightning.
Wow.
All that.
In equal measure.
In equal measure.
Right.
Yes.
All right. So, John Pombe Magufuli died. According to The Nation, he died in Nairobi. According to the Vice President of Tanzania, he died in Dar es Salaam. But the man is dead. And this announcement has been made formal by the government of Tanzania. Reactions upon reactions came out yesterday from various global leaders. And also now, various media houses and personalities and interest groups and non-governmental organizations and political actors on John Magufuli, the man, looking back at what he did as president, looking back at his legacy. Mixed reaction from the region. The clips that were coming out of Tanzania yesterday and the footage of after the news broke, the outpouring of emotion tells you something about what the people of Tanzania felt about it. It could be that being the first time that a sitting president has died in Tanzania, they're overcome by that emotion, that it doesn't matter. It is the president is dead. It could also be that they are thinking, all right, our president, our beloved John Magufuli is dead. Or it could be both. If I'm sure you were to listen to opposition leaders, they'll tell you, no, people are celebrating that Magufuli, the man, has died. But people are sad that the president has died.
You know, in this digital age, in this age of information that we are in, one must be very careful about what one says. It never goes away. It is simply stored. And there are those who store it for a later date. There are those who will celebrate the death of someone. I am not among them. No.
It doesn't matter.
It honestly doesn't matter. I may be harmed to the point where I wish someone ill. But that is because of the state I'm in at the time. I'm wishing them ill. But to be grateful and to be thankful that somebody whom, for some reason or the other, I had divergent views with is dead. No. That isn't something to celebrate about. Not really.
It doesn't matter if this person had actually put your life at risk. In one way or
I'm talking
another.
about myself, no.
In one way or another.
No. I would not be glad that they're dead.
Let's look at the justifications that come from people such as Tundu Lissu, for example, who, in his creed and his belief, is that the late John Pombe Magufuli was the cause of a lot of the issues that he went through, and that essentially forced him into exile. Him being shot and then having to come to Nairobi and then being treated, essentially, then his life being saved and then moving on to exile in Belgium thereafter. He believed that they wanted him dead. And this came about as a direct result of whatever decrees were set out by John Pombe Magufuli in terms of now what threat he posed to the government. As a result of his death, people like Lissu is now ready to come back to Tanzania. Over his dead body, no pun intended, would he have come back to Tanzania while Magufuli was still in power?
Although he did.
He did come back. He did come back to campaign, and that was the only reason why he did. And he said that if his party gave him the nomination to come back to the country, those were the circumstances under which he would come back to Tanzania to campaign. If they then did give him the presidency, he would take it. However, as he lost, he went back into exile. Now, under these circumstances, is now when he's saying he'll come back into the country. Such things to be taken into consideration then to ask yourself, was it so bad an existence under Magufuli in Tanzania for somebody like him, who does have quite a following as well in Tanzania, saying that he would not be able to exist in the space where Magufuli was the president of that country. And so for people like Lissu and his ilk, that rejoicing comes into play. And can it be seen as in their understanding and in their position, where they are coming from, it's justifiable.
You know, Nelson Mandela was jailed for 27 years. 27. Not 27 weeks, not months.
Years.
Years.
His children grew up without him.
Yes. He came out of prison an old man. A really old man. Now, did he hold a grudge against the people who held him in captivity all those years? He may have.
Maybe he did the first couple of years.
Did.
Yes. But did he then set in motion a process that would indicate that he had forgiven these people?
He did.
We have someone in this country by the name of Raila Odinga, jailed, put in detention. His health has suffered. Some of the problems he probably has now are as a result of his incarceration. Did we not see this man work with the very person who had put him in jail?
We did.
I am saying this. This is now an individual choice.
Exactly.
You decide what you think you can and you cannot forgive. I wasn't pronouncing a wholesale position. That's why I prefaced and said, I
personally
would not. Okay? And many leaders who have taken certain positions, essentially it's one of forgiveness and saying, I know it happened. I even understand the circumstances under which it happened. I am here. All right? This is what I am going to do. By the same token, if I'm to give the example of this same Raila Odinga, this is a man who has lost on very many fronts. There's a political party headed by his father. He moved away from it, lost an election to none other than James Orengo. He did lose an election. People forget this. The consistent thing with him and others who went to jail is he just continued. Other people went for elections. The people didn't think they should be voted a second time. They are forgotten. But many people in this country were jailed. Many. What am I saying? I am saying that when it comes to some of these political things, you give it the perspective in many ways if you're a politician which suits you. But I'm also saying that there are other perspectives and there are other examples that you can look at.
There are people who I saw in, pointing out arguments yesterday and saying, it's okay. Yes, we as Africans do not speak ill of the dead. But also, let's not sugarcoat everything that they did. Let's also say what we feel that they did. If when somebody was alive, you were criticizing him for what they were doing, when they are dead, let's also continue criticizing for what they did. If you felt that, okay, this man was draconian, this man went against freedoms of the press, freedoms of expression when he was alive, just keep reminding people, you know what? This is the man who curtailed freedom of expression.
He did.
This is the man who, during his time as head of state, as the incumbent seeking re-election, he went ahead to frustrate the opposition.
He did.
So basically, the people were saying, let's not start now saying, oh, you know, an angel has died, oh, an angel has gone to
No.
heaven, and when he was alive, we're calling him the devil.
An angel hasn't died. It is a human being who was a leader of a country who has died. And everything that we are saying, in my opinion, clearly personifies the character of the person plus the character of leadership. Not just on this continent, but the character of leadership that is embodied in that person's personality. This is the sort of leader he is. Did we not say yesterday that our own president has had his reputation besmirched? People have said the nastiest of things. I have argued, you know, this is a patient man who is allowing you the freedoms that are accorded you by a constitution.
Yeah.
No. He's weak. He should go. It will be a good day when he's gone. He says, okay, fine. I've understood you. Now, you people who seem to think I'm this, out. Dictator.
Yeah, he's a dictator.
Draconian. State capture.
I'm going to read
does not tolerate dissent.
Dissent. Stockholm syndrome. It doesn't end. So, which is it really?
To Tanzanians, this is what Tindulusi said yesterday. To Tanzanians generally, my message is this. This is a time to open a new chapter for our country. This is an opportunity for national reconciliation, which had been made impossible. I'll go back to Tanzania, but my going is part of what I'm calling for, my return, and the return of many others who are in exile, even in Kenya. It is time for Tanzanians to sit together to account for all the evils. Listen to what he's saying. To all the evils of these past 5 years. Because you cannot have reconciliation without truth. So in as much as we are saying, let's peel back and try to move forward, number one. Number two, even if this gentleman has died, let's not forget the things that happened while he was alive and the things that he actually made happen. That some people have been exiled because a direct result of his action. Let's not forget that truth, which is the truth to very many people that cannot be ignored. Now that Magufuli has passed, he says, we will write a public letter to the government in which I and my colleagues will set out our position going forward. And our position is that we cannot afford to continue with Magufulism. Without Magufuli, meaning that the country must change, we must extend a hand to all those who were persecuted and had to flee the country, like myself. We have to free political prisoners. We must stop these human rights abuses. We must free our media. Underlying issues for which many people are pertinent.
Okay. The thing that stands out, though, about Tundu Lissu is at no point is he mourning the president.
He's not.
At no point is he standing out to say, okay, under Magufuli's leadership, despite these things that went wrong, there are these things that happened that went right.
I think
according to Tundu Lissu, Tanzania is a basket case.
For sure. You know, the thing
because
is,
of Magufuli. And I'm asking, come on, really? No. Can't you even at one point just acknowledge, all right, he made efforts to fight corruption, or all right, he made efforts to bring harmony and unity in the country and maintain that fabric of the nation.
But you know, the thing
can't
is,
you even acknowledge once?
Yeah, sure, for sure.
Will you lose a tooth?
No, you wouldn't. But look at it from where he's coming. Look at it in this point is that for him, the experience of being shot and the person in his mind who was responsible for him almost meeting his death is now dead. For him, that is front and center.
Okay, it is.
That's front and center for his experience. So you could...
However, he's alive.
Yeah, but we don't know because a death sentence, or rather a death
experience, a near-death
has
experience,
not come at your door. And
hasn't.
The person who was responsible for that is now dead. Don't you think that is the experience that's going to be front and center for him?
Okay, but not yet in everything. Look, he's already setting conditions. I'm going to come back to Tanzania and this is what... Okay, look, you have had personal differences politically with this person. It has degenerated to a point where you are shot. How many times again?
17.
17 times. All right, near-death experience. All those things. But at the same time, was there anything good that this man did? Was there anything positive? Would you acknowledge the fact that there are people who supported him? would you acknowledge the fact that, yes, there was... You brought in many more people to Chadema to start thinking, let's think opposition, let's think alternatives to CCM. But at the same time, there are people who still looked at not just CCM, the party, but more fully the person.
But it's a picking point. And we keep saying here that people are humans, right? You got to look at it for the reality that it is. There is nowhere under the sun right now is Lisu going to say that, you know what, he actually did some good things. How do you think it helps him as an individual who is looking for prosperity politically in the future? You think it's really going to help him at this point by saying the thing that... No.
Yes, it does.
It shows that he's tolerant. It shows that he's a kind of leader who would listen. He's a kind of leader who's considerate. He'd consider things. Yes,
to someone
we
else.
are completely opposed to one another ideologically and in everything else, but at the same time there's a point to what you're saying.
Yes, the same argument could hold on the other side, whereby he will also say, you know what, we need to continue calling out things for what they are, whether they are, especially if they are going against human rights. So on this side, you could say absolutely. It could show that he's tolerant. It could show that he's the kind of leader that maybe you'd want to have in the future.
Statesman.
It shows that he's statesman and that he's patriotic, and say that even if somebody has made mistakes, I want to have that Nelson Mandela form where I say, you have done this to me, but I'm going to take the stance of forgiveness. Yes, very good. On the other side could also serve as the same argument where somebody says, in as much as this happened, I need to be the kind of leader who will call out wrongs no matter what they are. So there's merit for both sides of the argument.
Everyone who is in the opposition has the easy task of calling out wrongs. And I'm calling it easy because that's what you do. And you can see it. It's as plain as day. Our president was once leader of the opposition, was he not?
Oh, yes, he was.
Yes, and did he not also loudly speak about the things that were there? Being in power and being in the opposition, two very different things. Very, very different. In one, you actually have the power, and the responsibility of ensuring you do the things you say you want to do. And there are things in that position that you cannot know about until you get there. And then you have to grapple with them. However, Ndu, your points are extremely valid. What I'm saying is this. There are two aspects. There's one of history and what it will see you as. Two, there is the process that you're pursuing of leadership and how you will be judged. I believe an opportunity is being lost here by Tundu Lissu. He was shot. There's no question about it. Everything he talks about, the gagging of the press in Tanzania, everything is true. However, an opportunity to rise up and show their statements is being lost here. The leaders that I mentioned earlier on, this is what they've done. They went beyond their personal pains. I haven't had that experience. The vast majority of citizens in this world don't have it. But let me bring you back to more atrocious things that have happened. Truth and reconciliation. Why do you think they have these commissions? Why do you think that we have the Hague? Why did we have the Nuremberg trials? Because human beings do horrible things to each other. Horrible, terrible things. And they never end. And people realize, you have to have a mechanism where you can bring people to book and hold them accountable for the things that they do. All right? But then there is the final judge in all these matters. People talk about Hitler as though he was doing the things he was doing in the dark. It was in broad daylight. And he was being ushered on by the very citizens of that very country. Who only until after they had lost the war realized, goodness gracious me. But people forget, it didn't begin with Hitler. It began with the reparations after World War I and the way Germany was treated and the way the people felt. It took Angela Merkel, when you had a crisis of immigrants coming into EU, to more or less take a stand that stands today.
Yeah.
Said we can do it. And they welcomed...
Let's open our doors.
Yes. And said, we've had these same problems ourselves. People opened their doors for us. I'm saying, she didn't lose that moment. She didn't. And by the way, it was against the wishes of most of her colleagues in Europe. They didn't want that. And she was saying, no, we cannot just turn a blind eye to this. So I'm saying, you want to lead Tanzanians. And this is bring my point. Tanzanians are celebrating this man.
Yes.
Yes, you almost died. But Tanzanians are celebrating this man. What do you think is going to happen to you when you then present yourself as a leader? Among these same people who are celebrating this man whom you are determined not to celebrate.
You're basically being tone deaf.
Yes.
Completely. You cannot hear what the people are saying. You still want to maintain on this one particular message.
And they're saying it loudly.
Yeah.
That is a Western perspective on how to treat other human beings and how to live. This is what I'm trying to tell you. The electorate is not European. They are not American. They are Africans. And believe me, People do not thank you. Even if someone is a known murderer and a thief and they die, in their hearts they may say, thank God this person is gone. But, they will say it in close whispers, hey, goodness, why didn't this guy die earlier? But they will not publicly come out. You know why? This person has relatives, and this horrible person has done some good for some people.
Yeah.
It isn't as though we are blind to the ills that people do. We do know them. But we have a sense of propriety.
So, several stories have come out in several media publications. I'm going to read just an excerpt of a story by the BBC, which is John Magufuli, the cautionary tale of the president who denied coronavirus, published 14 hours ago. They say, yes, he was a man of the people. His supporters will miss the hours-long road trips that he embarked on across the country, which involved multiple stops that he could speak with the public. These trips, which unnerved government officials, were often broadcast live on TV and became popular with some Tanzanians who saw them as an opportunity to get instant redress to their problems. Crowds of people often gathered and shuffled around the presidential convoy on close watch of the heavily armed bodyguards. So that is one thing. Then they also talk about he also muzzled Tanzanian media, shutting down several newspapers, radio and TV stations, as well as social media platforms, simply for reporting what the government did not like. He was also criticized for implementing policies such as banning girls who got pregnant from going to school, but it was his handling of COVID that was arguably his most damning failure. Then it brings in the debate here of strong men or strong institutions. There will be rigorous debate in Tanzania about Magufuli's legacy and whether his successor should stay the course or change. This debate cannot be divorced from the divide about whether the continent needs strong men or strong institutions. Magufuli appealed to many because he was unencumbered by institutional limits. He issued edicts and things happened, and to many citizens who had grown frustrated by incompetence in government, this was refreshing. But equally, many Africans want to live in law-based countries, to enjoy a life of dignity free of brutality, to have leaders who govern honestly and truthfully, and a government that respects them and does not hide information about their president's health. Magufuli's death has been blamed on heart problems, but many still suspect that he has succumbed to COVID. So what the story is saying is it has moved from just swiftly, it has moved from Tanzania to whether the continent needs strong men or strong institutions. Because of what has happened in Tanzania, let's bring this conversation back about these Africans. Do they need strong men as their leaders, or do they need institutions that function? When a president goes and makes an edict and just becomes law immediately, is this the best way that Africans should be governed? Or is it about strong institutions? And this is one. If you look at many other Western publications, they'll talk about Magufuli and they'll go into that angle of this one man who appears to have been a law unto himself, of this one man who appears to be the one who is saying, were people complaining? Were people saying, come on, Bwana, don't insult our public official?
No.
Follow the...
They were cheering.
So what is it?
Ask yourselves the simple question. There's a gentleman who is now the immediate former president of the U.S. Okay, was he a strong man? Was he a leader who worked in strong institutions?
Yep.
Again, my favorite world leader, Angela Merkel, was she a strong woman? Which is which? Because if you look at the traits, the differences you'll find, for instance, is that they have institutions that are solid and they are what they are. However, you can't remove the human element from it. For instance, in the U.S., do you really think that the vibrant, independent U.S. press published everything that happened on Capitol Hill? The answer is no, they did not. That place has cameras. Everything that was filmed, do you think they broadcasted it for everybody to see what exactly was happening and the crazy things that people did once they entered that place? The answer is no, they did not. So, what are they doing? Are they curtailing the freedom of the press?
No, but I think also it's very clear that in some of those cases, just like we say, they have a way of protecting their image, whether they have an independent media, whether they have state media or whatever it is, they have a way of protecting their image. They're not going to show you everything that happens. They're not going to air their dirty laundry in the manner in which you expect it to. That it comes from this side of the pond as well. What you see here in terms of terrorist attacks, what you see here in terms of the stricken poverty, etc., they will not show that to you in the way in which they do on this side. You won't see it.
And yet, they have poverty at levels that are astronomical. They have inbred, homebred, home cultivated terrorists. Everything that we complain about the rest of the world, they have in equal measure. But they are able to, as you say correctly, ensure that they put not just a good face forward, but a good foot forward. Look, it is understandable that sometimes to look good, you need to besmirch someone. You need someone to look bad on your behalf. And if you look at the narrative that represents the late president of Tanzania, it was that. He was saying, folks, let's not look down upon the things that are who we are and what we are. We can also do things that are good. Now, unfortunately, it was also coupled with things that he did that are considered a no-no. Muzzling the press, all right? Using the military during the elections. But let's pause and look at East Africa. What have they said about the president of Uganda? What have they said about the president of Rwanda? What have they said? And when it is spoken of, you forget that this is a man who came into a country where how many people had been killed? It was a Holocaust. Okay? They are forgetting that the country is now stable, and they are forgetting that you have a disparity in populations in that country. You have three main groups, Hutu, Tutsis, and Toa. Okay? The Tutsis are fewer than the Hutus. He happens to be a Hutu. Why is it that it must be represented as though this is a man who doesn't understand he is Rwandan? What do you mean he doesn't understand? He understands it better than anybody else. This is a man who was in the thickest of things. He is a man who left family life to try and bring some sanity to his country. And then someone wants to write it as though from the comfort of a desk that this person doesn't seem to know. How do you know how he resonates with the needs of his country? In an attempt to write a balanced article, and Eric, you go to the heart of the matter, the pointing out at the end of this long story is that these Africans can't manage their affairs, and they will always go back to some jungle format, which includes and ensures that there is misrule, they're butchering each other. There is no press on this planet that is absolutely free. None whatsoever. The same narrative is taken to the Chinese. We look at the Hong Kong issue. Is Hong Kong part of China or not? It is. There are those who would argue, the Chinese want Hong Kong to be aligned to the mainland China. But, again, we see what we call suppression of freedoms. Are we saying that people who are in mainland China are not free? May have been to China. Can people go into China? Yes. There was a time you couldn't go into China at all. Now you can. Can you do business with China? You can. So it's a narrative that isn't going to end today. The West are going to continue to want to ensure that their dominance is where it is by always subtly and sometimes very, very overtly presenting everybody else as below par. They don't necessarily say that they're above par, but if you're below par, they're the ones who are saying it. It stands to reason that they're above par.
So, was there unproportional negative press about John Magufuli in the
Yes, there is. There is.
Unjustifiably so?
Justifiably from their perspective. And that's why I asked the question early on in the show, who should be the final judge of this? They may say they may have their say if they wish, but the people of Tanzania don't seem to agree with them.
Unfortunately, some of the things that were reported then from Western press, unfortunately, had an element of truth. That's the unfortunate thing here. And that they now took this same narrative and they now were able to multiply it and then to suit their own narratives. If they talk about suppression of the press, was it a reality? Absolutely. There are still Tanzanian journalists in jail today. And why are they in jail? They've not had a trial. They've not been called for trial. Why are they? Because you will then be able to trace back and they wrote a story of information coming out about government that they did not want to come out. So is it existing? Yes, it is. Was there suppression? Yes, there was. Unfortunately, then that narrative of suppression was then taken to the end, a lot of times by Western media.
Yeah.
We saw that local journalists were not able to use Western sources and they were arrested just for that. Did it happen in Tanzania? Yes. Are there Tanzanian journalists in jail today because of that? Yes, there are.
Are there journalists in Western countries who, they're not in jail, but they'll not get a job?
Yes.
There are journalists who've gone underground and formed their own platforms online in other countries, based in other countries, because they could not get a job in their country. Why?
Yes.
Because of using the systems to make sure that you don't have a platform anymore.
Yes,
Yes.
there are.
So?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But who's telling the story? Do you find, for example, that there will be a Kenyan journalist telling the story
Of
about these
how,
Western journalists who then have been curtailed? Will you find that? No, you won't. It just happens to be that they're the ones who are telling the story. This Western media that we talk about, this one that you've quoted, they're the ones who are telling the story. Why don't we have the reverse ever? We have examples of, they say, and a small firm coming out of London, for example, wants to come and set up business in Kenya. Do you find that a small firm out of Nakuru is going to set up business in London and then will call Britons to come in, for example, and then now they will give them an index of how they are performing on the world market? It doesn't happen. Why does the inverse never happen? Why is there not a journal of these Western journalists, for example, who are stuck and are not able to tell the truth? There's no expose about them. It's always the other way around. Why?
It is. Let's take a break at this point. It's 7:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the Situation Room, broadcasting on SpiceFM, on KTN Home, and online. We want to take your calls after this break. 0719 012 600. We are looking at the treatment of John Pombe Magufuli and his legacy by the West, Western governments, Western countries, Western media. We want to hear about your thoughts on this. Let's take a break. We want to see what's happening on the roads this morning and also take a look at the weather forecast for various towns and cities around the country and around the world.
.9 Spice FM, Mombasa.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, SpiceFMKE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive. The weather with Spice FM.
All right, mostly cloudy, some sprinkles in some parts of Nairobi this morning. 19 degrees. It's going to go highs of 27 and lows of 17. Light rain in some parts of Nyeri at 15, highs of 24 and lows of 14. 27 the high in Nakuru. It's mostly cloudy right now at 13. Sunny conditions in Eldoret, however, at 12, highs of 25 and lows of 18. 20 will be the low in Kisumu. It's sunny at 19 right now. Sunny conditions also in Kakamega at 18, going to highs of 30 today, lows of 15. 26 the low, and light raining in Mombasa at 27. It's also raining in Malindi at 27. It'll go to highs of 32 today. 27 will be the high recorded in Kampala, mostly cloudy right now at 20. Mostly sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam at 25. We'll go to highs of 31 today. 26 will be the high in Johannesburg. It's sunny right now at 16. It's a hazy morning in Lagos. Chance of rain later on. Highs of 31 and lows of 25. 32 the high, and heavy thunderstorms continue in Kinshasa. For now, we'll see lows of 23.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Traffic.
All right, still that heavy traffic that we're seeing outbound on Thika Road headed towards Muranga. There was an accident that happened. They're still trying to sort that out. And unfortunately, yet another accident on Gara inbound to the city. The smart snarl-up definitely is coming soon as more vehicles then join the melee that is going on there right now. Okay, getting off of Mombasa Road and onto Mombasa Road, it's going to be quite something today. It's already started to build up. Schools are closing officially. People are traversing the country. Please be careful. That's an appeal right from morning today. Eastern, Southern, Red Hill, Northern bypass is looking pretty good. Not much of an issue right now. You might have to use the long route to get out of traffic, but you won't be stuck. SpiceFMKE, talk to us on Twitter. Text us on 40127.
spice and everything nice. Alright, okay. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Right.
94.8.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. We are looking at President John Magufuli from the lens of the West and how the West considered him. We want to hear from you, 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. So it didn't just begin with Magufuli's stand on the approach that the Tanzanian people were going to take to COVID-19. First of all, there was no denial, really, like you're saying, City, that there is no COVID. Immediately, COVID was announced, and in the initial days, was it 3 days after Kenya's first case of COVID-19 on the 16th of March last year, Tanzania also announced the first case of COVID-19 in Tanzania, and they went into exactly the same kind of thing that we did. Shut down schools, close sporting activities, public gatherings, ensure that there is physical distancing in public transport, urge people to wash hands, sanitize, maintain social distance. And after a while, that's when they started relaxing and saying. So Magufuli's reopening was not saying, okay, we are going to start relaxing this. It was reopening by saying, guys, you know what? In all these things, Tanzania being a highly, very, very religious country, whether it's Islam or Christianity, with the Roman Catholics and the Lutherans being very, very strong, was like, let's trust in God. Let's trust in God. What are we going to do? Are we going to stop everything just because of this? Or are we going to do everything we do to take care as we go back to work? The time he was announcing that his own son had contracted COVID-19, he was like, my son contracted COVID-19. So it's not that there is no COVID. It's here. But this is what I urge you to do. Go back to your farms. Go back to your work. And still remember, bear in mind that there is COVID. But do not let it bog you down and say that you're shutting yourself down because of this. Got to a point where now it was now a bit more vocal. And even saying, okay, if we continue even broadcasting openly about COVID-19, I don't want to hear that. Let's focus more on going back to work. Criticism, of course, rose and rose because of, number one, stopping to do public testing, and what he said about the test kits that were coming in from foreign countries, and saying, look, these things that they're sending to us, we can't even be sure what they're testing. That's when he took Elizabeth Ane, a pawpaw, and some sample from the pawpaw was taken to the Maabara, the labs, and it was tested and it turned positive. And they were like, this pawpaw turned positive. What are you talking about? So the criticism started rising there, and you could say, all right, so you, as somebody who actually has a PhD in chemistry, so you're a scientist, coming out so openly and speaking like you're just some villager and you're like, you don't even understand how testing kits work. There's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with the messaging and the way you're putting it. But it had started even before that in how he was running the government.
Sure.
Fight against corruption, saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. Review all the mining licenses that have been issued in this country. Review our relations with other countries. That was an issue.
Sure, it did, but you have to also look at where did it touch. Review all the mining licenses. What does that mean? That essentially there is some international activity then that has been touched. Somewhere there is some kind of sensitivity. And look at it. And I dare say that even what we're talking about did not start with Magufuli. Anybody who's been labeled strongman on the continent, anybody who's been seen as a thorn in the flesh of Western policy or global policy, what is it that they have been doing essentially? You find that they have taken certain steps to kind of form some kind of national protectionism, and also say that, our state sovereignty, our national sovereignty must be and will be respected. They very quickly get these labels, whether you like it or not. And you must also see that they come from countries where there is global interest. We talked about the fact that Tanzania is rich in natural resources, that Tanzania will forever be on the eyes of those who want to have a say. So when he came in and started talking about the review of all mining licenses, did it just affect Tanzanians? No. There are huge global companies that are resident in Tanzania and whose job is just to mine and take out, right? So don't you think that there would have been some kind of anxiety or nervousness when it came to the review of such? This is what I'm saying. Whereby these things are actually being done to take care of a country and its people. Unfortunately, it is coupled with actions that would bring about a narrative that would fuel very well somebody's agenda for being able to say this man is difficult and paint him in a very bad light. It is not Tanzania that it has happened the first time. We can name very many other countries. Today, for example, if Buhari was the kind of man in Nigeria who was a little bit more bullish in the way in which he behaved and started to say, hold on a minute, we have what it takes to control our own oil in this country. We're going to kick out all the big oil companies. Don't you think he would be labeled strong man immediately? Don't you think that would happen? And then they will start talking about the human rights problems in people shouted NSAS for months in Nigeria, for example. Did you hear beyond castigation? Did you hear beyond condemning of these acts from the West? You didn't. We condemn the actions that are being taken by police in Nigeria. That was it. Previously, had you heard that Buhari, for example, was going to say, Shell, all of you, out. We are going to figure out how we're going to mine this oil. Something like NSAS, would it have come about? They would have said, you see, this man...
It's a draconian. He's killing his own people.
He's killing his own people. But because he has taken a soft stance and he's the darling of the West right now, nobody's going to call him that. Do you see what I'm saying? The fact that you do something in a certain way will label you strongman on the continent. It did not start with Magufuli. It is not going to end with him. We talked about Moy at some point was called that, was he not? Because he refused things like SAPs at structural adjustment programs in his time. This man who ruled Zimbabwe at the same time, Mugabe, what was he not called? But what was he doing? Libya, same thing happened with him.
Even in Uganda, Museveni,
same thing happened with him. Unfortunately, there are things that are done by these leaders which fuel the narrative and unfortunately set the agenda very well when they want to now start forming those narratives. But if you are in a different way, they don't call you anything.
Let's go to the phone line, 0719-012-600. Yagon.
Yes, good morning, Eric.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Salama
kabisa.
So, personally, I feel that Africa will miss a true son of the soil. And if you remember, every time I have been calling, I used to use Pombe Magufuli as an example. You know, people from the outside will hate you because of you standing on your crowns and what's good for your people. The West will not today support or talk good of Pombe Magufuli because he stood ground about the minerals, anything to do with Tanzania. If you need something, if you need diamond, you need what type of a mineral, can you construct a factory and process the raw materials here? So he was not subscribing to imperialism. Because there is no way today, for example, us in Kenya, we mine oil, we produce oil, and then we export to be refined and being sold to back us. Not with a subsidy. We are just importing like we are importing a foreign product from another country, yet we exported our own oil. In terms of COVID-19, I will take an alternative route and praise Magufuli.
Why?
Because these are person who foresaw ahead that my people will suffer twice. You suffer from the COVID and you suffer from the economy. That is where he let loose that, please, chapeni kazi. Corona itakuja na itakwenda. Now we closed our country. Did Corona stop invading us? Right now, we are not working 24 hours.
But he could not have been even careful to tell the people, all right, so in as much as we have to work and we have to pray for protection, could we not also then have made it very public coming from government that you can take care of yourselves, that corona is actually here, take care of yourselves, wear a mask, hygiene and all of this? Could he not have said that at the same time?
At some point, Magufuli said, that we will not be criticized if you wear a mask.
Mm-hmm.
But wear a mask which it correlates
It's
with the
produced
health.
in Tanzania.
Yes, with the health, even us, we are wearing clothes. Where does it being produced? But our normal tailors are just making masks here. So at some point, he acknowledges, even at the time when he said that I can die of corona or what, he was acknowledging. But he didn't want to give people fear so that they can stop working. Now we were given fear, we cannot walk, and still we are witnessing. We have a vaccine, the third wave is here. The school program is crashed.
Yeah.
In Tanzania, it's working on well, and we have you ever seen the mass graves?
Actually,
because
please go ahead.
Yes.
No, go ahead, Yagon. I want to listen to what you're saying.
If he had banned the media from broadcasting, we cannot miss some guys from Facebook. If Kenyan hospital had predicted the death of Magufuli for a long time ago, we cannot miss that fellow. Even Tundu Lissu himself, if he was on point that where is Magufuli, he could have said, look guys, people are dying in Tanzania. But we didn't have that. Our drivers even could be witness, because you cannot go to a country whereby it is hell. But we were doing business, and drugs are going there, drivers are going and coming back just to kusumbuliwa tu kwa border from our side. So that guy could have given us the information that, hey, things are hell in the other side.
Things huko ni
So
kubaya.
we suffer twice, yes.
Let's hear from other callers as well.
But we celebrate Magufuli.
Let's hear from other callers as well. Thank you very much, Yegon. Kennedy Owiti, good morning.
Good morning.
Good
How
morning.
are you?
I think I would agree with the gentleman there who says that we should show statesmanship by how we conduct ourselves. I think Tundu Lissu has lost a great opportunity to show statesmanship. He has given the examples of men like Mandela, who were persecuted, but decided that they would forgive. And I really think that is what statesmanship is all about. If a man is going to be a leader, he should be temperate. But to stand out there and celebrate the death of Magufuli and go to the extent of basically what Kenyans call dancing on the grave of the dead, that causes fear amongst the people he intends to lead.
Okay.
I think, therefore, that what he should have done, I'm not in his shoes, obviously, as your lady presenter says, he had been shot at 16 times and things like that. But at the end of the day, he is seeking leadership of an entire nation. And he must be able to show that he is temperate, forgiving, accommodating, and that cannot be shown by him celebrating the death of Magufuli. Thank you very much.
Asante sana. Hussein Mohammed in Isiolo, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody there.
Good morning, Hussein.
Yeah, here we are okay in Isiolo. The weather is very hot. We have no rain. Anyway, I just want to say apology to the people of Tanzania and the family of the president, former Mr. Magufuli,
Right.
Pombe Magufuli.
Right.
Now, what I just want to say, I think Magufuli lost several steps, because in Africa, I think if you can remember about former late Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi, when he went to UK to see maybe to meet the Queen, he dressed his own traditional dress. And when he went to see the Queen, he was told, Babaji, why don't you dress a three-piece suit and then have a tie? He said, Babaji, in my country, people are poor, and this is this is the dress they wear, I'm going to see the Queen with this dress. Now, I'm really wondering in Africa, the presidents of Africa, leaders in Africa, the car they drive, the dress they wear, what do they do, all come from foreign countries, made by foreigners. Now, I think what the late President Magufuli should have done is create industrialization. And as much as you want to create your own path, your own way, but economy is very, very critical, crucial. I don't think whether even they have a research center that which is researching on COVID-19. He was talking about Popo. He was talking about other issues. So I say here, I think
they actually do have research centers in TZ.
But you see, they should have come up with even the vaccine themselves. Collaborate with other African countries. I think with Magufuli should know that he does not live in Ireland. This world is interdependent. We only got independent, Ilea Pendera, but economic independence, we are being still colonized by our masters. So you have to be very, very careful when you are leading the country. People like India, China came from very far, sacrificed. But are people in Africa ready? Like example, if we now say, sorry, Nigeria, they will now chase Shell, other foreign companies. The first people to uprise against you is going to be your people. So you need to be very careful. And by the way, we don't know how many people died on COVID in Tanzania. We don't know. We don't know. We don't have figures.
We appreciate your views, but it may surprise you to find that Tanzania has just the same number of research institutions like we do in Kenya, and they mirror even the activities that our research institutions conduct, and they also collaborate with their East African neighbors in research matters. And as for industrialization, if you look at the SGR in Tanzania and ask yourself where it begins and where it ends, you will find it heads to regions that are rich in natural resources. This president set up a mining facility, gold mining, something that on this continent we are not supposed to do. Other people are supposed to do it on our behalf. So you will find that some of the things that you say, this president actually did do them. It's when we come to issues of human rights, it's when we come to issues of freedom of the press that you will find many issues being raised. But as for the existence of things that build a country, you will find that he had taken center stage. There's something he did also. That man reduced spending of the government. Didn't talk about it like ours do. They actually reduced spending. Okay, ours talk about reducing spending and then borrow some more money. So how do you actually understand the two concepts?
Let's hear from Edwin as well. Edwin in Kericho, good morning.
Yeah.
Edwin, please switch off your radio and then we'll be able to have you. Lydia, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Salama. Good.
Hey, muko salama?
Kabisa.
I want to say pole for the people of Tanzania and the entire family. Now, if we are addressing people about this disease, we have to say that it is true. It is there. But the problem is that now some people are asking, how is Magufuli? Then the others say he is okay, and yet
he's not.
So, and yet he is not. This is what we call. You should tell people true. How somebody is.
People should have been told the truth.
People should have been told. All right. Edwin is back on the line. Edwin, good morning.
You should tell people true.
Edwin, surely. Anthony in Mombasa.
Morning.
Good morning, Anthony.
Okay, what I'll say is this. First and foremost, I'd like to send my condolences to people from Tanzania. But in Africa, we've lost a very good leader.
Okay.
And we always say as Kenyans, we need a Magufuli. Honestly, if he was alive and came and ran, even as an independent here, he would have won. Now, as much as people are criticizing Magufuli, the core issue is, what do Tanzanians want?
Okay.
They didn't mind curtailment of journalism. They didn't mind freedom of speech. What they mind, what was at their core was corruption, service delivery. That is what mattered to Tanzanians. And that is what Magufuli delivered. Believe me, if here in Kenya, let's say, for example, we get a president who will curtail corruption zero, service delivery, and freedom of speech is curtailed, how many people will vote for him? So many. Because what we really want is what is the core for us as a nation or a people is we have problem. We need corruption to end. We need good leadership. We need service delivery. Freedom of speech is behind there.
So the focus will be on those other things first.
Yes. Now people are criticizing Magufuli on those things that Tanzanians didn't care about at the core.
Okay. Thank you, Anthony,
Yes,
and thank you very much. It's time to take a quick break on KTN Home. It's 4 minutes to 8 o'clock. Keep it right here. In the next hour, we look at media coverage of this death of John Pombe Magufuli, starting from the moment when he was not seen in the public and what was coming out on social media and what the mainstream media then was doing. And also at the same time, we'll be looking at the legacy of Tanzania's John Pombe Magufuli. Good morning. So that break on KTN Home, we're back, and the conversation continues here. What exactly is it that the people of Tanzania would have wanted? That's the question that Anthony is asking.
You know, there's this.
What was more important to them? A government that's working for them? A government where, because people are clearly expressing frustration with public officials not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and here's a president who's trying to streamline them, a president who's saying, look, the administrative headquarters of this country is in Dodoma. Why is the entire government in Dar es Salaam by the beach? Go back.
Come and work.
You know, there's a lot of the conversations you hear, whether it is people who are pro-Magufuli or against Magufuli, people who call him whatever name you want to call him, whatever adjective you want to use, they forget no human being is one simple factor. We are a composite. And depending on who is looking at you and who is determining to answer you, it can't be that there's one person who's always good. There's nothing of that sort. Even religious leaders who are considered to be the paragons of virtues, there are people who complained about them. And they said, this one, not okay in the head. This one. It's the way we human beings are. But the reality that we ask, what do people consider to be useful? We had a case in this country when the ODM party tried to dislodge a governor in their area of influence in Migori. The people of Migori, unfortunately, didn't share the enthusiasm of the secretariat. They didn't. And this was shown by the county assembly clerk taking a certain position, the speaker rather taking a certain position, the MCS taking a certain position. It didn't happen, in short. All right? Why? Yes, the party may not have been happy with this particular person. His people had a completely different idea. One of the things that I think people who make these broad sweeping statements about a person, they take a perspective that seems popular in a certain part of the world they live in, and they don't take into consideration the part of the world that this particular leader lives in and the perspective that the people whom he rules over think. Our President Moi seemed to have been even more popular after he left his position as president than he was when he was president.
Even now, you see the way people talk about Uhuru Kenyatta?
Yes.
You wait, 2024.
They say,
2023. They'll be like, but you see, Uhuru did so much. Uhuru was,
if it was Uhuru,
all those things that you've been saying. If it was Uhuru,
Uhuru would not be
Uhuru
going
shook hands with Raila.
Yes.
Uhuru constantly spoke about peace and wanting to have a united country. Uhuru was a statesman.
Without Uhuru.
You wait. You wait, it's coming. Good morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. In the next hour, we talk about media coverage and then we go back into TZ and ask,
what do you
the
want?
legacy. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. traffic.
Okay, yes, so still some traffic on Mombasa Road today, headed in and outbound. Issues right around Airtel, then affecting traffic coming from the Likoni interchange. So then traffic coming from industrial area, you're going to get stuck there, especially if you're trying to then approach Mombasa Road going down or going towards the southern bypass. There we still have issues this morning. We also have some problems on Thika Road today. There was an accident Muranga bound, so we need to look out for that one. Still now dealing with the dregs of that traffic. Coming into the city, getting to the Globe Overpass, there is still some traffic there as well. So it's not too crazy a Friday morning. There will be more traffic later in the morning. A lot of schools closing today, a lot of crisscrossing throughout the country. Be careful, guys. That's one thing we can say for sure. Let's look at other parts in a bit. We'll take a look out west and see what's happening in those towns. And then we'll go east and look into Mombasa and see how that is faring this morning. Talk to us should you need to. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
Minutes after 8
the
o'clock.
only
This
way
is
to
Kenya's
start
biggest
your
conversation. It is the Situation Room, broadcasting from Nairobi 94.4. We are in Mombasa 187.9, Kisumu 102.5. If you go to Eldoret, you'll find us on 96.7. Nakuru and its environs, it's 96.0. Nyeri in the region of Mount Kenya is 90.9. And Malindi and Kilifi County is 97.7. We're also live on KTN Home until 9 o'clock. And we live stream the show every weekday morning on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. What a proverb, CT. That's what Yegon, when he heard it, was like, what a proverb. Say the proverb again.
Despite the beauty of the moon, sun, and the stars, the sky also has the threatening thunder and striking lightning.
Despite what?
The beauty of the moon, the sun, and the stars, all in the sky. This very sky also has threatening thunder, okay, and striking lightning. Striking, and in that visually, yes, there's something illuminating about it, but striking also because sometimes it lands on certain things.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi. Tumesikia. Tumeelewa. And it is the truth.
Did you know that Ghana actually produces more gold than South Africa?
Yes, they do.
Yes.
More gold than South Africa?
Yes, they do, but we only think of South Africa because we hear about it. Do people actually understand that prior to 1972, 3, and eventually 4, that the word inflation was something that was discussed in theoretical terms, and that it became a reality on the planet when the people who produced petroleum, oil, in its crude form in the Middle East decided, we need to get together and form an organization that we can actually benefit from this particular product, this natural resource that we have. Yes. And yet, the truth of the matter is, there are other countries in the world outside the Middle East who also produce the same oil. Why am I saying this? You see, it is one thing to have a perspective that is true, but it is also a better perspective to understand that other people also have perspective that may be equally true, even if they're contradictory. It's like Western education is wonderful because it opens your scope, but it doesn't give you a handle on issues to the point where you believe that the knowledge you have is supreme above all else. It's just knowledge, period. And the other people who also have it also just have just that knowledge, period. Yes. And when these knowledges, if I may call it that, come to the fore, then the possibility of having a discussion, such as the one we're having, takes place.
Sure.
Yes.
I think one thing that's extremely important here is that for whomever has an opinion, that the opinion comes about based on some element of truth.
Yes.
And it is upon that truth, and that's what we're talking about. Whether you look at those who are saying right now that John Pombe Magufuli died a man who was trying to do something good for Tanzania, right? Truth. It's the truth to some people. And they're saying that, okay, hold on a minute. Before we would see rampant corruption and he would come into industry, for example, and shut people down. You're not working, you go home. And those are some of the issues then that were bothering the economy of the country on a whole. For other people who come in and say, you know what, in as much as you're telling me to forgive, in as much as you're telling me to forgive and move on, and that would show the elements of a statesman, I am also coming from the stance where I say, we must be in direct refusal of these traits that are going to take a country south in the future. And it is upon that I am setting my foundation. It's based on what? An element of their own truth. Mm-hmm. That they have seen things go in this manner and they're saying, these are some of the reasons why we are in the position that we currently are in. That if we are looking at human rights abuses, that is why we have Tanzanians in different parts of the country, because they're afraid to come and speak the truth that they have seen
in their country.
Mm. That's why they're living outside. Is it a reality? Absolutely. It is. And so that forms the basis for their experience. It forms the basis for their truth. There are some people, unfortunately, who argue without any kind of basis at all. But these two that we are talking about right now, for those people who feel that their experience was made better in a country by this man, that is their truth. For those people who are saying, you know what, I was in a position of leadership and you're telling me to forgive, I was doing a dance with death. And this was the reason why I was doing that dance with death. Now I have a reason to live. I am going to come back and say, those traits that we saw in this man who is now passed, we should never allow them to come back. Can you fault him? You can't.
No, you cannot. Because he does represent a truth. And there is yet another truth that I can add on to that. When you are in the job description that we call politicians, the lay of the land is known. It is not an unknown lay of the land. It isn't something that shocks you and surprises you. It is like coming to this country and saying that you are shocked that voters want to be given money. What is shocking you? Voters not want, expect to be given money. It's just a reality. And the other reality, it will have no bearing whatsoever on whether they vote you in or not. None. The two are not related. By the same token, you may say that you have a nice development record and because of this must vote you in. No, it doesn't work that way.
Sorry.
Doesn't work that way. Development record, fact, reality. Being elected, that's a different reality. And these are the things that one must juggle all the time. But that is if you're in that field. If you want certainties up to a certain point, get into paid employment, where you even understand when you add another piece of paper, the likelihood of being promoted is this. When you do, it is known. Okay,
you get clear knowledge of.
If you are in research, if you publish, which means you're involved in writing, then you must also develop the capacity to write grants. Then you have money with which to do research, and then you're able to move forward. Known. But if you move outside that sphere, those rules may not necessarily work in some other sphere other than the one that you're in.
Okay. Let's move the conversation a little bit along. Still talking about John Pombe Magufuli and his legacy as a president, but also now looking at what we have talked about media, his treatment of the media, and whether that has had an impact or an influence in the way information was being shared during his last days as president, until the point when it was officially announced that the man has died. There was a rumor, and it started, that the president of Tanzania had been flown into Nairobi and that he was recuperating. He was being treated in a Nairobi hospital of COVID and COVID complications. There was also a rumor at some point that the president has been flown out of Nairobi to India. There was a rumor, and this one, there was reporting by the opposition leader, Tundu Lissu, from Belgium, and he was saying, I've heard that this man is critically ill, he's paralyzed, and they're not announcing his condition. The first formal mainstream media house that went with his story in this country was Nation. And Nation said, leader of an African country reportedly hospitalized. And they gave all these conjecture and, trying to paint a picture of who this leader would be without saying which country, which leader. And they also did not say what exactly is their source. You know, not revealing the source, but showing the credibility of the source. A source who works at this particular hospital, a source who's a senior official in government, a source who is in intelligence circles, a source in Tanzania, in Tanzanian government, a source within CCM, a source in State House Tanzania or State House Nairobi is the one who's told us we cannot reveal the name or identity of this person because of obviously they're not allowed to disclose. But this is the sources are kind. These are the kind of sources. It wasn't like that. The Nation story at that point was saying, look, the management of Nairobi Hospital is not confirming this. The government of Kenya, the government of Tanzania are not confirming this. We've heard. Today, they've gone big with the story. And they're saying, this is exactly what happened. The president fell ill. He was flown into Nairobi Hospital on a certain evening. And then he was flown out of the country back to Tanzania. And he was at this point on life support because doctors had determined, according to the story in the Nation today, that he could not be resuscitated. So now we've gone all out on the story. The question that emerges is, did the media miss the story? Did the media get the story? Did the media fear telling the story? When Tundu Lissu was saying all these things that he was saying, could the media have said, look, this is what we know, and this is why we're reporting it? Was there something that was missed? Let's bring in somebody who's an expert on media issues and coverage. He's the Director of Media Training and Development at the Media Council of Kenya. His name is Victor Bwira. He joins us on the line this morning from Kisumu. Good morning, Victor.
Morning, Eric. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Kazi mzuri jana Harambee ya Robin.
Thanks. Yes, and we thank all the friends who turned up at Robin Njogu's funeral Harambee. Victor, this coverage of John Pombe Magufuli, from what you've seen, let's not even talk about just local media, but even international media. International media that went to the story like Al Jazeera, like BBC, and are quoting what they are hearing from opposition leaders like Tundu Lissu. Would you say that the media actually told the story to the people in the right way?
Thank you, Eric. They have started telling the story from yesterday. Now the story is there, and you can see people putting their faces, putting their voices. But as it were, like you mentioned correctly before, it remained a rumor. And it remains a rumor. And obviously, Nation, aware that they have an office, a whole media house and a newsroom in Tanzania, Citizen, the Weekly Citizen and the rest, had more sources. But obviously, because of fear, couldn't go with that story and naming, like you mentioned earlier in your discussion. But the bigger thing, like I mentioned, is that it's not that journalists were weak or were not doing their work or were lazy for that matter, but this is a classic example. I think it will be a case study in many newsrooms and elsewhere, the issue of limiting access to information. And once you limit access to information, it becomes, you leave rumor, fake propaganda to rule. And in an area where people need information, in an area where, for example, speculation about the life of a leader, it just spreads like bushfire. So this is a lesson. And Eric, look at the context. I have worked in Tanzania myself. I was in Tanzania a few months ago undercover, simply because of trying to rescue some journalists who are facing challenges. And I can confirm to you that a number of people who are, for example, with friends and networks in Tanzania had this story, but nobody would want to do it because people didn't know that the leader would come out or God would take his life. So this is what happened. When even you saw in villages, people who were just discussing, old men discussing about the health of them were arrested. And that's the situation, that the media situation in Tanzania is so bad to a level where even, and you see now outside the national security law and outside the national statistics law, they have now what you call the Media Services Act. The Media Services Act has very, very, very weird provisions. They still have the Books and Newspaper Act and they introduce other laws through the Tanzania Communication Authority that even bars online media, including now the online media, and from discussing any of some of this, even what we seem to to be common sense. And once you push people, yes.
Victor, can I step in and ask you though? So there was a lot of reporting, or not just talking about this main story that we saw. There was a lot of reporting, whether even now we're looking at social media. There was a lot of reporting, which maybe now we can say was based on speculation. However, there was a lot of reporting that was based on people's credible sources as journalists. I mean, the last 2 days, speaking to journalists here in Nairobi, speaking to journalists in Tanzania, and even in other parts of the world, whose credible sources gave them the information upon which they wrote. But there's something that you've mentioned here. The element of fear came into play. Because nobody
And
really knew.
censorship.
Yeah. Can we say this? We don't know if we can say this for fear of essentially being arrested or even being
Yes, and
censored.
people have been arrested.
So what do you do in that case? Your reliable source, your credible source, upon which you've previously written and even provided a scoop per se, has given you this information. They've seen it with their eyes. They know it to be true. But in the eyes of many, it is still speculation. What do you do in that case? And the world is waiting for this information. What do you do?
It was a big challenge, but like Eric said and like you have mentioned, a number of people tried. I know colleagues in Tanzania who had information. They were looking for places to share this information. They had a lot of credible information, but because of fear and self-censorship that what might happen to me, they started sharing. I mean, if you looked at, for example, Tundu Lissu's Twitter, I mean, it was very consistent. You could see this is a very credible information. But again, media was also weighing in the sense that Tundu is now in Brussels. Tundu is also very bitter for the life he went through the hands. So again, how do you moderate? You saw his tweets were very, 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 very extreme.
It was strongly worded.
Very strongly worded. And this is a person who is doing it personally. He had suffered under the late, and you could see it. So as media, we're also not sure this guy is he, but he was giving very consistent information. And a number of online platforms in Tanzania that are credible were giving a lot of credible information. But like you were saying, a number of journalists, you remember, Eric, at one stage, Kizito Namulanda, Mutuma Mad, were thrown out of Tanzania, you remember. And so these are real things. I mean, Nation Media Group, for example, has been forced to change its ownership structure in Tanzania. So again, you remember what, for example, the government of Tanzania made it Royal Media, Citizen TV, and Ebru TV to apologize for nearly 2 weeks. I mean, and consistently. So these are realities.
Mr. Buddha, let me ask you this question. At what point do we begin to apply caution? At what point do we self-censure? At what point do we have responsibility that looks not only into the present and simply issuing out the news, but the possible repercussions of it? How do you balance this?
I think, Eric, what is...
This one is the other Eric, who goes by the name C.T. Muga.
Sorry, sir. I mean, from what I'm seeing, and this is a practical example.
Yes.
I have covered stories from Rwanda, from DRC, on my name, not because they are my stories, but because we fear the journalists in those countries can be affected. They will send us stories. We use our byline just for the sake of information getting out. And I am sure I can tell you this. If, for example, it was the Star, the People, or the Standard that had such information like what Nation had, they could have gone with that full information. But Nation was very cautious because they have a business in Tanzania. So they were very cautious. They were very cautious because of what might depend on their business. But if it was Standard, for example, or Nation, or somebody else would have, or people would have gone with that information because it was credible information. I mean, from a few friends here and here, Nairobi Hospital had confirmed to a number of people. I mean, other things had happened in Tanzania if a few friends had because sickness around a president is not something you can hide.
Right.
You can say he's in private, you can say Amanda leave, you can say whatever, but you see, even the president at any single time the president moves with not less than 100 people in Africa. I mean, it's vehicles, people, toilets, and water around him, so that when he's not there even for a second minute, people will know there's something wrong. So you can never, and this is a lesson to people who deep state that there are some things the world has changed. In fact, some of the information was coming from the team around the president, people who are frustrated, and there are a number of things that are unfolding. So I think while we want to be bold, yes, and I'm on record saying that we are not saying journalists who are lazy, but there's also weighing the issue of what we call corporate or institutional terrorism. I mean, in the sense that you will write this thing, you will be thrown out. You know, I am telling you, all of my colleagues, you know, that there are some topics, even discussing, you will be stopped by others, because media is also balancing between business, their survival, and now with these hard times of COVID and revenue fall, people, media houses are so cautious, not the journalists themselves, but the
institutions.
Of media houses.
Mr. Bwire, you said there are lessons to be learned. Perhaps an entire study ought to be conducted. But let me just take you back to the history of this country. Everything you've said to the letter is true of this country at some point. Everything that you have said. What lessons did we learn? And how have we applied them? Because we seem to have overcome the very same things that you're discussing and talking about with reference to Tanzania.
Thanks. I think there's boldness in Kenyan in Kenyan journalists and other sectors that sometimes supersedes a number of our countries. Our institutions have grown to a level where sometimes it's difficult, and people having learned earlier before 1991, before the opening up of space. You remember the Pius Miyamoras, the Jehu Gatabakis, and what, and people start learning that sometimes, one, you can be bold, or two, you can work as a group and spread the risks. That sometimes it reaches a stage where you say you must spread the risk. I have this story. I know it's better if I use Spice to use it instead of using Radio Maisha because of the technical issues involved. I share. So that this issue of inclusive, that we as a media house are, and if it's not us, the story will rather die. We must move around it. And I have seen a number of colleagues who share stories, say in our area it will not. The issue of also solidarity is a major thing. I can tell you, sometimes while people work for different media houses, but a number of times when things face the country, people talk out and say, as media, what position do we take as media as an industry? So solidarity and professional networking and peer review also helps. And if you look at, for example, you remember in March 2013 during election, and there was a terrorist attack in a polling station in Kilifi, for example. So there was a big story, officers had been killed. But editors started and said, we have an election, a general election starting. People have been waiting for 5 years. Yes. A terrorist attack has happened. Yes. How do we balance? We are not going to use this terrorist story on page 1 or lead item in our media. We'll use it on page 4, 5 because it's a story that has happened. But we don't want to give it the prominence that would then jeopardize an election. So that discussion and openness among professional colleagues has also helped Kenya overcome a number of these things. And then obviously there are a lot of support structures in Kenya. I mean, you ask, for example, John Alan Nam, will ask Muhammad Ali, other investigative journalists, that sometimes they're out to do stories, and the support from outside the media houses is so strong that there are a number of media support groups in Kenya that would want to help journalists uncover or do major stories and would give them protection, including keeping them in safe houses, including giving them some little investigative support to go and do these stories. There's a team of pro bono lawyers who are willing and have gone to court on behalf of journalists when they are threatened, which seems to be lacking in some of our countries. So these are lessons that we have seen. And then when again also you look at the level of our media growth, it's a bit high. That while yes, there are structures that impede free press freedom, that in Kenya with the constitutional protection of like Article 33, 34, and 35, sometimes people think twice before they violate those articles by, for example, stopping journalists from doing stories or doing some work. They will use unorthodox means like threats, like SMS, but in a country like Tanzania, for example, with their current media law and the legal framework, it is so vulnerable that even the state does not used to use intimidation or harassment. They will just pick a section from the law, like the Media Services Act, like the National Security Act, like the Books and Newspaper Act, and take you to court directly. In Kenya, I think sometimes state is annoyed, but sometimes it has to take time and look, because they take you to court with this law. Somebody's in the court to say that thing is unconstitutional. So again, the independence of our judiciary and the activeness of civil society has also helped that the accountability and the monitoring and the documentation of human rights violation in Kenya is a bit high. Again, looking at Kenya, for example, now we are now sitting on the UN Security Council. We host a number of embassies. We host a number of international media. Again, there are some things Kenya would want to do But because of the environment in which we live, the government sometimes is slow that if it will be reported at the UN Security Council that Kenya has this grossly violated this human rights.
You're shooting yourself in the foot.
What will be the implication? So that again has helped in moderating some of the excesses that we used to see.
Victor, to ask you, there's a lot of chatter then amongst media circles now that with the demise of Magufuli in Tanzania, that things might open up just a little bit in the press. And there's also the notion that the closed media spaces that we've recognized or that we've seen in Tanzania were not necessarily a Magufuli issue, but that were a Tanzanian state issue. Will we see a kind of change now that he's gone? And it's expected, but are we likely to see that?
Thanks. To me, in fact, my article I'm writing now is an open letter to the President Samia. I mean, there are a number of things they must relook because some of these things had gone to a level where they are in their laws. And sometimes the president, unless he releases a number of executive orders, and doing some of the things that have already been done will take some time. It might not be a 1 day, a 2-day thing. So a part of it is that a number of people involved, especially in the media and the civic space, we must write open letters. We must push that some executive orders are given. Because, for example, if we looked at the media space, they already have a law called the Media Services Act that is already in the law. So a number of the things that we are talking about of the cybercrime, the Computer and Cybercrime Act are already in the law. So we must work around having them reversed and change through acts of parliament. Now, given the current situation where, for example, there's no even, I think there's a very little opposition. Look at the Tanzania, how they had done the election. The parliament is largely CCM, I mean. So who brings this law, some of these laws that we want back to parliament so that they are revisited? Two, for example, if it was a deep state thinking about how Magufuli, for example, was running the country, how do they then look at the Samia when he starts reversing these things immediately in countries? I mean, Biden in America was easy because they have strong institutions. But in our countries like this, for example, if the president is going to give 11 or 12 executive orders reversing a number of things, what is the likely ripple effect among his close people who are benefiting from such approach to things?
Yeah,
so I think we need to be a bit cautious. We might be over-expecting. It will take some time.
Thank you very much. Victor Bwire is the is the director for media training and development at the Media Council of Kenya. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. I don't know where the deputy came from. I think it's the deputy president thinking.
I also deputize the CEO. So.
Of course. Yes. So, Mr. Deputy CEO.
Asante sana Visha for joining us. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, 28 minutes past 8. Let's take a break and we'll be coming back shortly. We'll be speaking to somebody in Tanzania.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, SpiceFM KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be.
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
use a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafandi hii umbo yako iko na pembe.
Nini umba special.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
All right, so still mostly cloudy conditions in most parts of the city of Nairobi this morning. Going to highs of 27 today and lows of 17. Light rain in Nyeri at 16. Excuse me, highs of 24 and lows of 14. 27 the high in Nakuru, sunny conditions at 16. It's mostly cloudy in Eldoret at 14. We'll go to highs of 25 and lows of 13. Mostly sunny in Kisumu at 21, highs of 31 and lows of 20. Kakamega is mostly sunny at 22, highs of 30 and lows of 15 today. Mombasa, still light rain being experienced at 29, highs of 33, highs of 32 in Malindi. It's also raining at 28, mostly sunny in Kampala at 21, highs of 27 and lows of 19. It's also sunny in Dar es Salaam at 27, highs of 31 and lows of 25. 26 will be the high in Johannesburg today. It's sunny at 18. It's hazy in Lagos at 25, highs of 31 and lows of 25. We're cloudy conditions now in Kinshasa as the rains have stopped, highs of 32 and lows of 23.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
Right, so everybody's asking, not so much traffic this morning. Is it because schools have closed and schools are closing mostly today? It would look as though, yes, it does affect it. Not too crazy today on the roads. Mombasa Road, we had a little bit of a pickle here and there. Also on Thika Road, outbound and inbound. Heading into industrial area and out of industrial area also is where we saw some problems. Outbound towards Nakuru and into Nakuru town, some traffic as you get into the town, but it's not too crazy. Mombasa is also looking pretty good now in terms of reports that what we are seeing coming back into Nairobi. We'll take a look at what it looks like into mid-morning. But for now, it looks like it's not going to be too crazy of a Friday. Tell us if it gets that way. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
So
Nairobi.
8 minutes to 9 o'clock. Kenya's biggest conversation. The conversation continues right here on Spice FM. A number of things we've heard from the Victor Bwire and what he was talking about. So, what do you make of that conversation?
I listened keenly to what he said, and the effort of bringing all those who have like minds into a conversation in this country helped move this conversation of change and what eventually manifested itself as the freedom of press that we have in this country. There's a group of people who were not necessarily mentioned, but alluded to, the political class. Because when we talk about the times when we had a single state, a single party state in this country, the media fought. The media had its say. They were fought against. But the politicians, unrelentingly, what we're now calling the civil society, we didn't know they were called civil society then, but there were very many individuals who are of similar minds. There were people who felt, no, this thing has to change. And they consistently fought against, But it's a concerted effort. And also importantly, and what didn't come out, the churches, the religious groups also joined. Meaning, it was like the representation of the entire nation were together in this one quest. We need to bring about change. And the change we need before this thing happens is we need to have more than one party being offered for consideration in running the affairs of this country. So, that is my take from what one Mr. Victor Bwire had to say. And that particular concerted effort, unfortunately, for those who would like to muzzle the press and claw back the gains that we made in the Constitution, continue. And if you want to know just how beautiful this open society is all about, we now have in positions of authority right now people who, some of whom, opposed the constitutional change vehemently. And they are now benefiting from it. In the same way, I would argue that you're looking at the BBI and the proponents and the benefits. Yes, there are things that it doesn't quite bring out clearly as a benefit, but I'm just talking about the benefits. The people who are opposing it, and yet they are likely to benefit from it immensely. So, this is what happens when you have this sort of freedom. You get to know about these things. But more importantly also, you get to talk about these things. Yes, and the divergent views are listened to. It is how you grow tolerance and you grow to understand that a difference of opinion is just that, a difference of opinion. Yes.
So clearly what would need to happen is that the civil society in Tanzania, the media in Tanzania would need to rise up.
Together with the political class and the religious leaders. Meaning it has to be a concerted voice.
It has to be concerted.
So that even those in power realize, excuse me, this is a representation of all our people here.
Yeah.
We need to pay. Because there are people who are quietly conversing, talking to, because there must be people who these leaders listen to.
For sure.
Yes. And if they are part and parcel of it and they can package this. Do you remember there was hardly a time in the history of this country where top religious leaders, bishops, cadis, people came out openly and spoke openly. Not just the lay readers and the simple priests in parishes. No. Bishops. Bishops came up and said, no, folks, this one, sorry, we don't agree with you.
Can't work.
Yes. And so it was a voice that had support. And Mr. Bure brought it out clearly. That support system has not come to an end. Remember when we were asking the church to rise up and take up their proper role? It's with this background that I'm speaking of in mind. When the church were at the forefront of fighting for the rights of their citizens. When the religious leaders were at the front of fighting. And then it's like they took a back seat. We called multipartyism and we had this thing. And they said, we arrived. We didn't. This isn't a fight that ends. It never ends. It just morphs. And the status doesn't change. It just morphs. Like now, I'm glad Mutahi Ngunyi brought in the concept of the tyranny of numbers. Because then you understand that tyranny can also be in a democracy. Because if the rights of those who are in the minority are not taken care of, then to them, that position, which is a democratic consideration, is a tyranny. It's not just...
as you say that, yes, and it's true, it's a tyranny, and the kind of action that's required. I think we can say that we have witnessed that there are very many in Tanzania who are in the media fraternity who've been pushing. Somebody like the gentleman we spoke to yesterday, and the kind of work that he has done, Ansbert Ngurumo, where he's reported, where he's even had to flee the country, to cross over into Kenya, those journalists that have been arrested several times over and over, this shows that there's something that's been happening. People like Tundu Lissu and the rise of the opposition. People like Tundu Lissu was a former president of the Law Society of Tanzania. The other former president of the Law Society of Tanzania, whom we'll be speaking to at 9 o'clock, Ms. Fatima Karume, and what they've done, standing out, speaking out against. I think there's that movement. All it needs is some kind of support in what we'd say the political angle. If we had more vocal political leaders who'd come out and say, no, let's go here. Even get the credible political leaders who say, even if they're not coming up openly to speak about it, but saying, okay, you guys, how about you just listen to? Like the former presidents. If Jakaya Kikwete, for example, just said, well, I think it's important to hear divergent views. That alone,
people jump on that. Absolutely.
That alone would be something.
And it would show you that the conversation is happening, percolating under the surface. But what they needed was that push, that little oomph to say that it's all right now to have this conversation, because we realize that this thing needs to happen. So I think that there are conversations that are happening. I think there are movements that are working, through it. But the platform and the support, which is much needed to have it actually come out into the open, then is not present. And I think that support then needs to be provided across board. Because yes, we still do see many pockets of people who are vocal on social media spaces. But you can imagine now if the spaces within state then were open for these conversations and then pursuant action to follow, I think we would see a big change.
Would see a lot happening.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that these spaces aren't opened. No.
That's exactly
you have to force them to open. Those who are in authority don't want these spaces open. They usually don't. It's only when they get to a point they realize, wait, these spaces may actually even be useful to us. Okay? They're not all negative. But before then, you forget that when this particular government came into power, one of the first targets they had was the media.
Yep.
And they were fought vigorously.
Yes.
The media didn't say, okay, folks, they were fought. Because that is a space that had been won, not given. and they were not going to let go
Cannot just
of
let it go. Let's cross over into Tanzania and speak to one journalist. His name is Taji Luindi. Taji is a former radio presenter, former radio manager, a master of ceremonies of big events and state functions, entrepreneur, bongo flavor pioneer. He joins us on the line. Good morning, Taji.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Listening to you. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for availing yourself. Thank you. Karibu.
Asante sana, asante.
So, Taji, you've heard the conversation that we're having, and this is about, the freedoms that we take for granted in this country that are not actually also being enjoyed by people in the media fraternity, in civil society in Tanzania, to the kind of extent that we enjoy them here. We were speaking with a director of the Media Council of Kenya, which is the collaborative, self-governing body of the media in the country. And,
That's right.
and it comes out clearly that, if we look at the kind of freedoms that the media enjoys in TZ, you'll need to have some push so that you can have that more openness. If we look at just giving us a view from where you stand, how is the media treated in Tanzania, especially by the state and state organs?
Well, I think that in the past 5 or 6 years, a lot of people will say that the media has been stifled. It has been controlled. It hasn't really truly had a voice. There are no investigative stories anymore or writings anymore. So the space, the open expression, open and freedom space for the media, I believe every Tanzanian listening or analyzing the situation will actually say, yes, the media in Tanzania has been stifled. But listening to the conversation that you had, it's interesting to note that the conversation is going on in Tanzania. It's not that it's not going on. It just depends on which side of the wall you're standing. What happens with politics in Tanzania is you will read that the late president has polarized the country. And so one end of the polar gets to speak a lot, gets to express itself a lot. He's managed to go back to the times that I can remember of the 70s and 80s, and when we use the word propaganda. And that's been used very well. That is a form of communication. And as I hear later that you will be talking to Fatma Karume, she's on the other side of the wall responding to the propaganda from the other end, which is pretty much the government itself, but also organs that have developed with an affiliation to the government, or simply Tanzanians who feel, wait, we don't want anybody saying anything against the government at all. Take a look at all the grand projects. Take a look at how far we progressed. Take a look at the vision that we're trying to attain. And so there's a lot of noise, we might call it communication, from one end of the wall, and it's also being very much opposed from the other side of the wall that takes a look at other things rather than the grandiose scheme of the government as it was progressing before the demise of the late president. So I believe on Twitter, on social media, sometimes in the regular press, you will see these conversations playing themselves out, and in particular on social media.
Yeah.
We are having a conversation. We're not a country that's been shut up or shut down completely. So if it's not on social media, it's definitely
it is happening
going
on social media, and social media is quite big in Tanzania as well in terms of how it's handled. I mean, how people actively engage with each other on social media.
Well, I think what has happened is, right, we're still looking at the perception being that the traditional way of doing things still then resides in Tanzania. I think a beautiful opportunity is being presented here, where there are many conversations that are taking place via new media, and there are many things that Tanzanians in different pockets now are saying that this is what they need, this is what they require to see happening in government. as concerns their lives, as it concerns the economy, and actually want to be playing a participatory role then in how this governance is played out. And I see what needs to happen now is that there needs to be a streamlining of these opinions. There needs to be a streamlining of these conversations. There needs to be a coming together of these conversations because they're happening in different pockets around the country. It needs to be that this is clear that this is coming from the voice of the people. And this is what the voice of the people is saying. And this is what we need to happen. Once you have such robust conversations taking place in succession, it only seems to me that the end result is inevitable, that somebody's going to sit up and take notice. Somebody's going to listen.
Yeah, there's a lot that would happen. I mean, we can now bring in Taji and ask him that question.
So, I mean, Taji, from what we are saying now, yes, these conversations are taking place. People are having, whether in different pockets, amongst the corporate sector, amongst other social groupings, people are talking about what they need. What is it? We've talked previously about legacy here and saying that Magufuli has left a legacy and there's certain things that he's put in place. But what do people of Tanzania think that is? How moving forward do the people of Tanzania want to go? In which direction do they really want to go? What are these conversations that are taking place and what are they showing is the direction that Tanzanians want to go?
It's a broad question. Can you hear me well now? It's a broad question. I don't think anybody in Tanzania will stand up and say, we don't like where we're going. We don't like what we see. But these pockets that you're talking about are, for example, the private sector. With the austerity measures that the government is undertaking, it's freezing the private sector, taxes, very stringent measures being taken. Initially, it was closure, and it wasn't the regulatory processes were very. The processes were not friendly to business for both foreign and also local business. But we got to sit down together through, again, an organization like the Tanzania CEO Roundtable, which had good access with the former president, but has tried to make inroads with the late president, with formal meetings. The Tanzania Private Sector Foundation as well has been has been very instrumental for private business in Tanzania. And you could actually see the government responding by bettering processes, loosening regulation, but ensuring great oversight. I'm aware that the main area of contention has been with civil society. Civil society has attempted in the past 5 years to engage with government at different levels to organize major annual meetings, inviting government to listen. I've attended some of these, and that's why I'm able to talk about them. I can actually see that as we were approaching year 5, there was greater government involvement, greater dialogue happening, and a greater understanding was beginning to develop. And government actually saying at the very last meeting, eventually this year, or at the end of last year, that they do understand and a dialogue needs to happen as to what government, in a sense, fears and what the civil society can actually do in a space that was actually almost closed completely. They truly, the government really took stringent measures against civil society, made sure that the money they were receiving from abroad, the funding they were receiving from abroad, it was accounted for. It was asking what was it for. They needed reports. They were digging deep, very, very deep into the activities of the civil society. And I think it was trying to create a check and balance, but the process towards it was not very friendly.
Not very clear.
I think they were getting to a point where things were beginning to brighten up a little bit.
Taji, let me ask you, with the new administration of Samia Suluhu that is due to now come in, do you expect radical changes in terms of how the government thinks and how the government operates and how the government then looks at this push and clamor for more openness?
You know, I think most people don't see her as a stateswoman. The VP position in Tanzania has mostly been ceremonial. She'll be launching a factory somewhere, visiting certain organizations, and that's been going on since for a very, very long time. So we've never really had a VP assume the presidency. It's always been a running mate sort of position. But I've seen her in action in the past 5 years, and if she survives 5 years with a very strict president, I think she's been groomed well enough. She is very articulate. Many of the great meetings that I've attended with when she was present, she was able to understand the issues very well. She has society at heart. She has civil society at heart as well. She has at heart also the private sector. I think we will not see a radical change because we were going through a radical change. I think we will see a progression, and that's what I can clearly see her and officials in the government saying, look, we need calmness, and we need to get straight back to parity.
Okay.
To work. And I think she's a certain, I think today, later in the day, we can listen to her speech and also gauge whether she has the mettle to continue where, unfortunately, the late was throttling away.
Where Magufuli was. What are the people's expectations of Samia Suluhu? Do they expect, the general population, do they expect her to continue being as strong as Magufuli, or do you feel like they want to be something a bit different? Like, previous presidents who have been more diplomatic in how they approach things?
I think you've just said it. For one thing, they want her to be a unifying factor. But secondly, I think a lot of people will now lobby for a more diplomatic approach. They want more responsiveness and maybe greater engagement with all the things that we're talking about. We want all sectors of society to be able to contribute ideas, contribute innovation. They want to be listened to. And I think a lot of people were misconstruing Magufuli, or he was just putting up a stance where it was kind of hard to get to him directly.
We saw, already, and I guess they say a picture tells 1,000 words, Tanji. And we saw pictures yesterday, of her and those who surrounded her already donning masks. And the whole COVID situation, the whole COVID conversation is one that cannot be ignored, especially, unfortunately, with the demise of Magufuli. Does that picture state something in your view of what could be coming forward, especially when it deals with the COVID situation?
The vice president about to become president is very much aware about COVID. I have done maybe 2 or 3 events with her this year, and we have observed social distance. At a table where normally 7 would sit, all the way up to 9 would sit, the security detail would cut it down to 3,
Wow.
with a lot of space between her. And we'd have sanitization from the security personnel themselves. They'd sanitize her where she's sitting, the microphone she would come in to use. They are very, very aware of COVID. She would probably sometimes don on a mask, sometimes not. But with the picture that you've seen, it is definitely a great awareness of the danger, inherent danger that there is for COVID-19. The government knows that this actually exists. The president himself, in the past month or 2, he also acknowledged the presence of it. And we can't say that Tanzania denied it completely, and eventually with a new variant, the president came out and said, yes, we do have a problem with it, take greater care. But he placed his faith in God.
I've got to ask the kind of politics that's now, running behind the scenes in Tanzania. We have heard a lot of speculation here and there. There's tug of wars within the CCM party. There's talk of the selection of the next vice president and who that person is going to be, and whether the main power barons within the CCM are going to insist on the person who becomes vice president. What are you hearing there?
I'm just reading on social media about what's going on, and I probably have my own ideas, my own opinions. But there's one thing that I'd like to let you know. The politics in Tanzania are totally unpredictable. You may think one way, but then the outcome will be totally different, because I believe CCM, since we mentioned it, as a machinery, it has strengthened itself immensely, and now has the capacity, or even knew in advance what the situation will be. They're already meeting, I believe, today, if not over the weekend. I think they will already have something in place and a statement that will come out, a very strong statement that will come out. The one thing that CCM will want to show immediately is great strength and unity. And create confidence in the people that they will have. They will continue. They will not shake. There will be no factions, and they will. It's from them, by the way. They will select the right candidates for the vice presidential post. And remember, we're talking about both Tanzania mainland and Zanzibar, and how the constitution stipulates that if the president is of a person from Zanzibar, then the VP has to be a person from mainland Tanzania. And so, I would say the strongest candidate would actually be the Prime Minister of the United Republic of Tanzania. I would like to see that, because then that would be a continuation of a clique, if I may call it that, was already working very well together.
Okay. Thank you very much, Taji. Taji Luindi is a former radio presenter, manager, MC of events, entrepreneur, a bongo flavor pioneer, journalist in Tanzania. Asante sana for sharing your insights with us this morning, and we wish you all the very best.
Asante sana, much appreciated.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Taji.
you. Time for us to take a break at 4 minutes to 9 o'clock, and say goodbye to your audience on KTN Home. But as you do that, remember today being Friday is the second day of the Magical Kenya Open that kicked off yesterday, the 18th, goes on until Sunday, the 21st of March at the Current Country Club. This is part of the European tour. We're getting a double header this year, because after Sunday, next week from Tuesday, we have the Kenya Savannah Classic from Tuesday to Friday. €1 million cash prize for the winner in both of these tournaments, the European Tour tournaments. This Magical Kenya going on today. You cannot go to the Current Country Club to watch, because spectators are not allowed, COVID-19 protocol, but you can watch the entire tournament on KTN News, and it'll also be live streamed on the Standard Digital platform. That's Standard Digital platform, and also on KTN News. That's today until Sunday for the Magical Kenya Open, and the Kenya Savannah Classic Tuesday until Friday next week. Kenya's biggest conversation continues on SpiceFM 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, Nyeri 90.9, and Malindi is 97.7. In the next hour, we speak with Fatma Karume, the former president of the Law Society of Tanzania, still talking about Tanzania and the change of guard and what we expect to see. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So a lot is expected to change in TZ, or maybe not.
At the center of this discussion seems to be the CCM. And it also brings to, should we say, a point of query. Remember when one Mr. Lowassa, who had been a CCM stalwart, also wanted the presidency, but he didn't come out on top.
Yes.
Then one could then perhaps conjecture and suggest that CCM actually has a very, very big say as to who they think should front and whom they are willing to support.
One good thing that's coming out is that CCM is a party. It's not about the individual.
No.
It's a machinery.
It is a machinery.
That keeps churning out characters who then essentially would sit at positions of leadership and authority. But that's the thing that we've seen regularly. Keeps churning out these individuals. But as a party has remained strong. We don't see this faction and divisions that we see and then mushrooming into something else.
Lowassa goes to Chadema and comes back.
No, comes back to CCM. You see, it has remained that way. And then again, you see leaders coming out.
Now, legacy, this is the legacy of President Nyeri.
There you go. Good morning. 9 o'clock. Keep it right here.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Traffic.
Doesn't seem to be causing a problem in Nairobi today. Not too much traffic this morning, unfortunately. There was an accident that happened outbound towards Murang'a today on Thika Road. But that seems to have been sorted out, so we don't have much. We're going to see the problems that we normally do on Mombasa Road, and it's probably going to go into the weekend. The Likoni interchange, then joining Mombasa Road or going up then towards the southern bypass. Going to have a bit of a hiccup there expected. Other than that, we don't have too much of a headache on the roads, unless I'm seeing my own things. Mombasa Road coming then from the SGR seems to have flowed smoothly for the most part. Let us know if indeed you are stuck somewhere, and at least you can let people know, or at least call for help, eh? Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. We'll check things in about half an hour and see how that may have changed. You can text as well on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. On to the fourth hour of the show this morning. Every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. We're live on SpiceFM and we are online. Let's begin the hour with the day's proverb.
Indeed, let's. Despite the beauty of the moon, sun, and the stars, the sky also has threatening thunder and striking lightning.
Kweli kabisa.
Doesn't it just?
Mengi yamesemwa. I have nothing to add. Sina ya kuongeza. Mengi yamesemwa na waliozungumza mbele yangu. Thank you very much. So we are still talking about Tanzania, the death of President John Joseph Pombe Magufuli, which was announced by the vice president. The vice president is set to take over as the new president. Then she'll nominate somebody to become her deputy vice president, her vice president. That person will need the approval of at least 50%, no less than 50% of members of the National Assembly. Remember, the National Assembly is dominated by CCM. And just like we were saying as we were going to the top of the hour, then that means that CCM is going to determine who becomes the vice president. CCM has a very big role in how the country progresses, even in this transition. First time we're seeing the transition of the president dying while in office. First time we're seeing a vice president rising to president in Tanzania. This is a big moment for this country as well. So let's continue the conversation and bring in now somebody whom we've spoken with before, and she is the former president of the Tanganyika Law Society, Ms. Fatma Karume. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Of course, the first thing we're doing with everybody that we're speaking to in Tanzania and in the region is, passing a message of condolence to the people of Tanzania for the loss, the death of their president. What would you, first of all, say about President John Joseph Pombe Magufuli?
Well, personally, for me personally, it has been an extremely difficult 5 years. And I say that with all honesty because I sat and watched my country deteriorate into a country of fear. People were living in fear. It was difficult times under President Magufuli, particularly with respect to rule of law, respect of human rights. It was oppressive, and if you dared to speak against him, there were reprisals.
When you say that it was a difficult time, I am going to ask for a little liberty on your part. Could you be a little more explicit? Specifics and say, look, there was difficulty in this field, there was difficulty in this. Because you're a prominent Tanzanian. You're not just what we may refer to as an ordinary citizen. What are some of these specifics that you came across?
Well, okay, so let's start from the very beginning. When President Magufuli became president of the United Republic of Tanzania, his main goal was to rid himself of the opposition. And he said by 2020, there will be no opposition. And as time progressed, the opposition were disappearing, literally disappearing. They were either being macheted or just disappearing, never to be heard from again, like someone like Ben Sanane, or, as you well know, Kenyan, famously being shot to bits. Others were seeking refuge in Kenya. Now, this comes as a shock to a lot of us in Tanzania because opposing political views are allowed under our constitution. We're a democracy. We have the right to oppose the ruling party. We also have the right to form political parties. And all the political parties we're talking about who have been repressed like this or oppressed like this are political parties that have been formed legally.
What was the just from what you've said, in terms of that, what there was a determination to get rid of the opposition by 2020, a year ago. And why? Why get rid of the opposition? What were you seeing as the underlying reasons as to why the opposition wanted to be gotten rid of?
I don't think the opposition wanted to be gotten rid of.
Why the administration wanted to get rid of the opposition then?
Why did Magufuli want to get rid of the opposition?
Yes.
Insecurity, because for the first time in the history of CCM in 2015, they were given a run for their money, and they got less than 60% of the vote, the popular vote, at the poll. And it was the first time in their history. And so they were very insecure. That's the only conclusion I can arrive at. Because I think I heard you in the past discussing Lowassa. So Lowassa had jumped ship. He had joined Chadema. Chadema had joined and formed something called Ukawa with CUF and the other opposition parties. And they led a very effective campaign. And as a result, when we went to the polls in 2015, Magufuli came out with the lowest number of popular votes in the history of CCM. I think he came out with 57% of the popular vote. It's never happened before.
Okay, so then a lot has been, even during the last election a few months ago, Fatma, there was this strong voice that was asking for change in the government, change in the way things were being done, change when it came to human rights, change in corruption, etc. Was it that the system needed to change or that the individual needed to move? Which one were we looking at?
Look, I've always said that the system is rotten. However, throughout the whole process, we have a system in which a president becomes an imperial president. Balance of power and checks and balances are very limited within our system, or they're not good enough, and they're not entrenched enough. But the problem is, it depends who you have as president. You can't divorce one from the other. It would be absolutely naive to say, well, a bad system creates all the problems. Yes, it does create a lot of the problems, but good people working in a bad system can actually make it bearable for everybody else. And we've never had people in the presidency who have used the power of the presidency to actually attack individuals. I mean, it has been horrendous. I have to be honest. We've had people in prison detained without trial for prolonged periods of time on cases which are termed money laundering cases, in which you're just charged. You're not granted bail because you're not allowed to have bail, and you are stuck in prison at the will of the executive until such time as you are prepared to pay the sum they require of you, and you can get yourself out in what they term as plea bargaining. Now, this is something that we've never seen before. It's unacceptable. We've had these laws before Magufuli, but the presidents who were there before Magufuli never abused them in the same way he did. And this is something that we can't divorce personality from the bad system. If there is a bad system and you then have a personality that is prepared to abuse that system, you have a big problem in your hand.
How far back in the history of your presidency would you go? Would you go as far back as President Nyeri?
In what sense?
In the sense that you have a system that clearly lent itself to abuse. And a system that, as you say, the incumbency of President Magufuli has brought all the things that could have been considered negative about the system to the fore. So it actually existed. And why do I bring in CCM? And why do I bring in President Nyeri? Because CCM seems to be the powerhouse. The president is a byproduct of this particular party.
Well, I tell you something. On the 1977 Constitution is actually a big problem for Tanzania. It is the problem that was recognized even by Nyeri himself. And he did say that, in the hands of a dictator, and I think what he meant by the hands of a dictator, he meant personality. If you have a person who is prone to be a hammer as opposed to be somebody who is prepared to negotiate and mediate with people and listen, he said this constitution can create a lot of problems for the people. But let's be frank, it is a constitution that was drafted under his guidance, Nyeri's guidance. So he knew better than anybody the weaknesses of our constitution. And he was very clear about the weaknesses of our constitution, and it concerned him a great deal. Unfortunately, it worked for him when he was in power, and he was the imperial president. And after he left power is when he decided to speak out about our constitution and the limitations of it, and the potential for it to become a nuisance to the people of Tanzania, depending on whose hands the country was handed to. And unfortunately, we have seen the horrors of an imperial presidency when handed to the wrong person.
Time for us to take a break at 14 minutes after 9. We're having a conversation with Fatma Karume. She's a former president of the Tanganyika Law Society, talking about the change of guard in Tanzania. What has been there in the last 5 years? What then should we expect of the incoming president, Ms. Samia Suluhu Hassan, who is the vice president to John Pombe Magufuli? What's expected of the political situation, the political landscape in Tanzania? As we take this break, just to remind you that you can tune into KTN News and online on the standard digital platforms to watch the magical Kenya Open that began yesterday at the Current Country Club until Sunday the 21st. And then next week on Tuesday, from Tuesday the 23rd to Friday the 26th, you have the Kenya Savannah Classic. Both of these are the European Tour tournaments taking place at the Current Country Club. You cannot attend them because of COVID-19 restrictions, so therefore KTN News is the platform to watch. These are supported by Safaricom, Vulcan Wireless, also supported by Sports, Arts and Social Development Fund, Current Country Club, Johnny Walker, Keringet and Hemingways, as well, of course, as the Standard Media Group. At 9:15, let's see what's happening in the weather. We'll be back shortly.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, SpiceFM KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be.
Have you seen them? Am I lying?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say.
Thank you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Wasingishu was asking me, what channel is Spice FM?
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
The weather with Spice
All right,
FM.
in Nairobi, light rain in some parts of the city, cloudy conditions, and then sunny conditions later. We'll see highs of 27 today. It's partly sunny in Nyeri at 17, highs of 24 and lows of 14. 19 degrees and sunny in Nakuru, highs of 27. Highs of 25 in Eldoret. It's mostly cloudy at 18. Sunny conditions in Kisumu at 24, highs of 31, highs of 30 in Kakamega, 24 and sunny right now. It's raining in Mombasa still, highs of 33 today. It's also raining in Malindi, we'll see highs of 32. 27 will be the high in Kampala. Out of Kenya, it's mostly sunny right now at 22. The rain continues in Dar es Salaam at 28, highs of 31 and lows of 25. It's sunny in Johannesburg at 22, with highs of 26 today. The lows will be 14. There's a haze over the Lagos skies at 25. We'll see highs of 31 today, and the heavy thunderstorms are back in Kinshasa at 24 at the moment. It'll go to highs of 32. Sunny conditions in Beijing going into Friday afternoon, early evening. Highs of 11 and lows of 4. It's mostly cloudy in Paris at 4. We'll see highs of 9 and then really cold conditions of 1 at the low. 11 degrees and mostly clear will be the high in London today. It's 6 right now. It'll go down to lows of 3. Coming into New York on Friday morning, it's raining at 4 degrees. It's rather chilly. It'll only go to a high of 6 and lows of -1.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It is 18 minutes after 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, talking about Tanzania and what's happening. Change of guard in Tanzania. What do we expect after Magufuli? The conversation we're having this hour is with Fatma Karume, the former president of the Tanganyika Law Society. As we asked her, so what do you think now that the president has died? She is speaking exactly the way Tundu Lissu is speaking, has been speaking. And a few other active citizens of Tanzania. Look, we have had a seriously bad time in the last couple of years because of the leadership of President John Pombe Magufuli. We have seen oppression and repression in Tanzania. We do not expect that this should continue. This is a feeling that those who hold dear.
Yep.
And then those who don't, I wonder.
Why don't you're wondering why they don't have the same feeling,
why-
or why they're not expressing it in this manner,
Yeah.
or maybe they just didn't feel that this was, or they just did not feel that this was happening to the degree in which it was.
They didn't experience it firsthand or secondhand, so it was what they were hearing was something that was happening in other parts or to other people. So they really did not internalize this.
Or you don't resonate with it because you don't come into direct contact with this kind of behavior. It'd be interesting to hear, because a lot of times when you do have an opinion, especially when it's politically, you have also taken into consideration what the other side feels. So I think it would be interesting to hear then from Fatima, then why, if this is the case, why is there rejoicing on one side and then why is there mourning on the other when it comes to this?
Let's go back to the foundation of this particular country, and you look at even CCM. CCM wasn't, if you look at history and if you take certain perspectives that people have, as a party that was intended to allow for multipartyism. No. It was a single party state. That is how it was formed. And it was formed to bring to the fore very, very wonderful things, all right? It was to stamp out class formation and racism, exclude tribalism from politics. Those are good things. However, when you have such a system, if you look at it, it's autocratic. Now, changes have come about. And Tanzania has had their reforms on their constitution. But so long as CCM was at the center of their politics and the core, one could argue that what you see in Magufuli is actually a shift in this way. Presidents after Tanzania, according to some perspectives, were lent more towards what you may call corporate accommodation, okay? And corporate collaboration. And one would argue that Magufuli did the complete opposite. He wasn't for that. Now, unfortunately, along with it came the things that our esteemed guest is talking about. But even in the time of President Nyeri, people were detained. In the time of President Nyeri, there are people who were opposed to certain things who were not well tolerated.
Fatma, you hear what we are saying, and we're just trying to balance. Yes, this is the history of the country. Then we have seen the last 5 years of the fifth president and what has happened, that active citizens such as yourself and opposition leaders and civil society organizations and leaders have this view and this perspective and this experience with the president. And my question is, do you feel that this is reflected across the country by the masses?
Of course it's reflected across the country, and it's reflected by the masses. And I'll tell you why I say that. Look, in November 2019, we had the civic election in Tanzania. These are sort of your local elections. And out of over 400,000 candidates from the opposition parties were disqualified. All right? We're not looking at repression, which is aimed at just a few. This is a repressive regime. It was a repressive regime that repressed even people in the local authority. Look, if you disqualify 400 and something thousand people from running for local authority office, times that by sort of 10 people, because they have friends and family who all feel terrible about it. You have about 5 million disgruntled people. So no one's going to tell me that this hasn't impacted the entire country, and it hasn't had an impact across the board. Look, he went to the very roots of our democracy, and that is the local authority. This is not about just choosing a president and then being battered and being told that your vote wasn't counted, or being told your vote was counted, but then it wasn't, and the president wins by 80% margin. But looking at local authority elections, these touch the very lives of the people of the country. And do you know what happened in some instances? There were some areas which, where the opposition were disqualified, but there weren't sufficient CCM candidates to run the authority.
But how was he able to do all this, Fatma, with a strong structure in a political party called CCM, in a system where there were living former presidents who did not do this? How was Magufuli then able to execute all this without getting any kind of opposition. Or a slap back or slap on the wrist from, for example, the people that he looked up to, the former presidents?
Okay, so the answer is a little bit complicated. So I hope you have a little bit of time for me to explain.
Yes.
So after when Nyeri left the chairmanship of the party, CCM, he created something called permanent seats within the central committee of the party.
Mm-hmm.
And these permanent seats were for ex-leaders, for example, ex-presidents and also prime ministers. They had permanent seats. And the reason you had the permanent seats is because it allowed you a certain amount of independence to say as you please and to lead the party. You could be the voice of reason upon retirement because you have nothing at stake.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
It's sort of like a professorial seat in a university. You are given a permanent seat because you should be independent and you are supposed to lead the society in your field without fear. And so this is what happened in this CCM. And then along came Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete. He removed the permanent members of the Central Committee because he wanted to consolidate power. It was a big, big mistake. So the checks and balance at the heart of this institution were removed. So he relegated the permanent seat holders, the ex-presidents and so on, to a body called a body of the wise, which, by the way, has no vote. As opposed to when they were in the Central Committee, they could vote, and they were well respected. And also remember, if you have them in the Central Committee, these are people who have their loyalists within the party.
Yep.
So they were it was an important check and balance, and Kikwete removed it because he wanted to consolidate power. Big mistake. Big mistake.
So even he now could not even speak up against his successor.
Well, precisely. Very short-term thinking, isn't it? Because, the assumption is it's very odd. People prepare for their demise, isn't it? They will buy a grave and they will write a will to prepare for the day when they no longer have the power to speak. What was amazing about Kikwete is he never prepared for his demise. I would have thought that he would have, if I had been him, I would have strengthened the position of the elders within the Central Committee preparing for my demise or my exit.
So with all this that has happened and now John Pombe Magufuli has exited the stage. Now it's the time for Samia Suluhu to come in as president. What changes do you expect to see, realistically, with everything that you know, the background of CCM, the background of the politics of Tanzania, the fact that this is a former vice president who's rising to the presidency? It has never happened before. Her own political background and history and strength politically. What do you expect her to be able to maneuver and do?
Well, I think, let's look at her as a person. First of all, she's a woman. She's a Muslim. She is from a small island called Zanzibar. And she has been brought into central politics. She's not aware, in Zanzibar we don't have tribal politics. We just don't understand tribes. We don't have tribes. We have island politics. So we have the island of Unguja and the island of Pemba and the island of Tumbatu. And so we have island politics, but with politics we just simply don't understand tribes. Now she's been brought into, she was only brought into mainland politics or politics of the United Republic of Tanzania recently.
Yeah.
She's completely unaware of tribes and the tribalism that exists. Now, let me make this clear. Kenyans would say there's no tribalism in Tanzania. It's not true. Tribalism exists. Let's say it's not as bad as in Kenya, but it exists, as in most African countries. Okay? To suggest that it doesn't exist is a fallacy. So she's going to have to understand the tribal politics. What we do in Tanzania and what presidents have done in Tanzania is that they've tried to balance their cabinet by having members of cabinet from various parts of Tanzania, and so you have a representative politics within cabinet, which I think is very, very important, But in the recent years under Magufuli, we haven't seen that. We have seen politics dominated by one tribe, which is the Sukuma tribe. And we've gone back to tribal politics.
So what is she likely to
dominate the judiciary? Well, I don't know what she's likely to do, but I hope she will understand that she needs to balance. She needs to create a balance. It's always been like that. And she needs to be aware that peace in Tanzania mainland is only achievable if you have a balanced cabinet. And that will include also including more women in cabinet. But she will have a problem, and I'll tell you what problem she will have. She will have a problem with Parliament.
Why?
Because Parliament is actually, it was made up by Magufuli the way he wanted it. There wasn't a free and fair election in 2020. Even those people who were nominated by CCM to run as parliamentarians, there was no free and fair election within the party for the nomination. It was Magufuli who decided who would run in which constituency and which person would be nominated by the party. So it was effectively a hand-picked parliament. Those people he wanted in, he made sure he got. And the question was, for a lot of us observers and analysts, we said, well, why does he want a hand-picked parliament? Why does he also insist on having a parliament that is, 99.99% CCM? And it was, I think, for the purpose of amending the constitution so that he could proceed post the two-term limits within the constitution. So he handpicked this parliament. The question is, what is this handpicked parliament going to do when they see that Samia Suluhu is not following or adhering to Magufuli's agenda?
But Fatma, these individuals who were picked to make up parliament, whether or not they were die-hard Magufuli supporters, now that he's no longer there, the reason why they were put there, would you see that their way of doing things would change? Would their allegiance change? Or are they going to stick to the things that he wanted them to do, regardless of now who is in a position of leadership over them?
I think we're still going to see tribal politics. Look, Magufuli, throughout his period, favored the Sukuma tribe. And they were very dominant in politics. And so there's going to be a fear of backlash. And they will want to, as far as I'm concerned, this is my analysis, they will want to hold on to power. The question, we're not looking at just the next 5 years. We're looking at 2025. The question for me is, who do they want in power in 2025? And can Samia Suluhu hold on to power post-2025? That's the real question.
Fatma, I like your narrative and your perspective, but I want to go back to Zanzibar. You correctly say that you don't really have this tribal politics. Yes, but we talk about tribal politics because of its negative, divisive qualities. However, would we say that there is no division in the politics in Zanzibar? The answer would be no. I could answer that question myself. So what do we have in Tanzania? Is it a race problem? Is it a class problem? Because there are divisions.
Yeah, and that's why I explained the divisions we have in Zanzibar are along islands. I explained that. We have Pemba and we have Unguja Island and we have Tumbatu. Zanzibar is an archipelago of islands, and we have 3 main islands which are populated: Pemba, Unguja, and Tumbatu. Tumbatu is not such a big island; the population is not so big. However, opposition politics stems in Zanzibar directly from Pemba, the island of Pemba, because it was very much neglected for a prolonged period of time. And therefore it became the hotbed of opposition politics in Zanzibar. So I'm not suggesting that we don't have divisive politics in Zanzibar. That would be wrong. But we don't have divisive politics along tribal lines. We don't comprehend tribes.
Yes, and the point I'm making is that tribe is just one way of describing a point of convergence or division that people may use in politics. And I'm saying the other factors that you have mentioned or alluded to are the same. What I'm saying is this. If we look at the politics of Tanzania and we look at the people who are now in power, I would argue they're politicians. And the fact that they predominantly, as you say, come from the Sukuma tribe, political animals tend to converge around power. And they tend to look after, at some point, their own interests. Now, with the shift in power, are you saying that you don't see a situation where they will do what they do best and look after their own interest, even if it means supporting someone who doesn't necessarily come from their region?
So they'll gravitate towards the new president?
I am asking that question. Is it possible?
I think that what they'll do is they will pretend to gravitate towards the new president, but they will have another agenda, and the agenda is to take power in 2025.
Okay, in terms of kind of looking forward now, being able to predict in terms of what will happen, if we're already saying that it looks as though things kind of will continue to operate in the same way, can we really then say it was Magufuli that was the issue when it came to some of these things? If now he's gone and we still see that there could be a problem, was he really the issue? Or now should Tanzanians and government look towards the expulsion of the systemic rot that is clearly an issue?
Look, there will be a change. You cannot have Samia Suluhu is not Magufuli. Let's be frank about this. Okay, she hasn't got the same experiences as Magufuli. She doesn't come from the same background as Magufuli. For one, she's a woman. Okay, Magufuli was a misogynist. So she's not, for sure, we're not going to hear nasty comments about women.
Right.
All right? That's not going to happen. So we're going to have a different approach to leadership. If anyone says that the leadership is not going to change and she's going to do the same thing as Magufuli, this is not possible. It's not possible. a woman, she's a Muslim, she's from the coast. She has a different approach to authority. She's a mother. And she's not going to have the same approach to authority as someone who is a Catholic male, went to seminaries, was educated in seminary schools, and comes from a very traditional background. Samia Suluhu is cosmopolitan. She was born in Zanzibar, which is a very cosmopolitan town. She just has a different approach. Her life history is different. So to suggest that she's just going to proceed and be a little Magufuli is a misapprehension of the situation.
We want to thank you very much, Fatma, for speaking to us today. Fatma Karume is the former president of the Tanganyika Law Society, and she's been very, very active on issues of governance in her country and in the East African region. Asante sana, and wish you all the best today.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
20 minutes to 10 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Let's take a break, see what's happening on the roads, and then we'll open up the phone lines and hear from you. Now that the president is dead, what do you expect to see happening in the new administration of Tanzania? Good morning.
SpiceFM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they're getting per year, how much inconvenience they're causing, as much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a Fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's looking much better today on the roads. Hopefully we'll see an ease in traffic as we move. Well, Georgia Royal, before the Ray Bridge, we see some quite heavy traffic outbound on Thika Road today. Coming out of Westlands and going outbound of the city also, it's building up some, and so this one you have to be able to wade through it. Mombasa Road today was not too bad actually. Still some slow traffic, but bumper to bumper situations not really happening today. So looking much better. Let's see what it looks like through most parts of mid-morning out into the afternoon and then entering into the weekend. Let us know if anything goes out of whack. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Okay, 17 to 10.
Right.
What do we hear from users?
94.4.
012-600. What do you expect to see in the new administration in Tanzania? The new President Samia Suluhu Hassan, who is taking over from the late John Joseph Pombe Magufuli. Something that Fatma Karume has said about the CCM and the structures of the CCM and what had been done previously and had even been practiced is that creation of the permanent seats in the Central Committee of CCM, which is given to the revered people, former president and former leaders of the party, who then have this sort of insulated spot within the party where they can speak freely without expecting any kind of backlash from the current leadership, saying, nope, you guys, you're taking the wrong direction. I strongly believe this and the other. And then that was removed by Jakaya Kikwete, who removed them from the Central Committee and created a sort of a council of elders that had zero voting power. It's just a non-effective advisory committee.
A self-elected council of elders.
That's it. You know? So you then have a strong leadership that comes in, and you cannot speak against what they're doing.
Or you can.
You can speak, but nothing's going to be done.
Or you can speak
Or
and face the consequences.
Yeah, exactly. So nothing will be done, and then or they'll find a way to muzzle you. Say as much as you want, but then also prepare to face the consequences thereafter.
If you take the background from which Nyeri was operating from, remember there's a man who began his education at the age of 12. Huh? He was doing what people do, looking after cows, goats, etc., etc. Primary school, he was walking under 26 kilometers. If you didn't think you needed to go to the Olympics to go for the walking competition, this a man was doing it just so that he could get his education. Okay? Look at the British system. Look at colonialism, decides, look at the German system.
He said socialism.
What we need, this one. But people like the British pushed that agenda, helped him push that agenda. When he first wanted to connect Tanzania to Zanzibar, who did he go to? The British. But because of his utterances and the things that he said against Her Majesty's government, they felt nothing.
We're not going to help you.
No, we're not. And lo and behold, what then happened? The Chinese came in. And so they felt this man had socialistic leanings.
Well, I mean, Ujamaa was born as a result of that.
But if you have a country full of people who are predominantly poor, what exactly do you expect this person to do?
Yeah,
if he's a thinking person.
Sure, and if you come and tell these people who were gravitating towards poverty that the way in which we can help ourselves is to come together.
Yes.
Which other way do you think they're going to accept?
But more importantly, this is a man who actually got his higher education outside the country and in the UK. Okay, what do you think he understood and studied there? He saw. Forget just lived experience. He understood. You know something? The way you get to help your people is you form something that will guarantee that even the simplest person, the lowest common denominator, gets assistance.
Welfare.
Precisely. He understood it. But then presidents who came after him seem to have methodically dismantled this very process. Yes, it was a one-party state, but even when multipartyism came out, the principles on which he based this Ujamaa, you can see it eroding. Then Jakaya Kikwete comes in, he dismantles it. Forget eroding it, dismantles it. The check and balance that kept the CCM sober, gone. So what do you have? A president who can actually do exactly what they want.
Yep.
And then you come and blame John Pombe Magufuli? No. The thing had been presented to him.
Silver platter.
Precisely.
He just came in.
Everybody contributed to it, though, regardless of how you want to see. If you pick up something that was dismantled and you can't see direct contribution to putting it together, you also contributed. People who came down the line. Kikwete, and even after him. You're talking about dealing with something that was already dismantled. This, interestingly enough, the putting together, which was Ujamaa in itself, and then everybody who came after that, contributing to the breaking down of this very same system that was supposed to take care of the welfare of Tanzanians at whatever level, from the beginning, from the bottom to the top. Everybody then, in succession, contributed to the breaking down of this system.
And if you look at the presidents who came after Nyerere, one of the things that is clear, they all tended towards what we call state capture, okay? Benefiting from the resources of the state at the expense of your citizens. Just look, scandal. Not much talked about, but it existed, and they grew rich. Someone like Lowassa, who was high up in that party, it is said that, remember, President Nyerere was part of that committee of elders when he resigned. And he expressed certain views about the leadership, including the gentleman, Lowassa, and others. He said, look, folks, we understand that these people want a position, but, there's something that can't be explained here. Where did these guys get their money from?
Who are these people?
Okay, I mean, I'm just asking, do we really want people in positions of authority when they can't explain to us and we can't understand because they don't seem to have Viwanda, as we call it. There's nothing that they seem to do that can explain it. Even with Ujamaa, Tanzania had millionaires. They were businessmen who made money.
Well, even in the socialist states that still exist today, in other parts of the world, you have individuals who then will be rich, regardless of the fact that you've come together to create any kind of welfare system. You will still have that.
You know, the example that is given of Sweden. So Sweden in many ways is a socialist state. Those
is.
Scandinavian countries are. But they are billionaires and millionaires. Yes. So all I'm saying is, when you look at the political system and what President Nyeri and his people, because he wasn't alone. There were people who envisioned this. That system was just broken down systematically.
The question is now, moving forward with the new dispensation that is presenting itself as of 10 o'clock today, will you see then a building up of what was dismantled, taking the pieces? And that's the thing that I think a lot of people are saying, that it had been broken down over time. Now, Magufuli's death, to some people, then creates an opportunity for the building up of this thing that had been dismantled.
But is Samia Suluhu the person?
Now, that's the question. In the presidency of Suluhu, is it possible that you will see a reconstructing of this thing that was broken down? There are many attributes that could point to
people have
maybe.
said, don't underestimate this woman.
Exactly.
People have said, all right, she was just calm, collected, quiet, knowing her place. When she's sent by the president to go and represent him in opening up a new project, she goes, she's quiet, she does not speak. So she appears to be, this person who's motherly, who's just quiet, but after 10 o'clock this afternoon, when she actually is the president of the Republic of Tanzania, she may actually now start saying, all right, so I've got the power. And by the time you're seeing her taking over the reins, if you go by all the stories that we've seen about the kind of power struggles that have been there in the last 2 weeks, it means that she has got some backing. Now, do her backers want change, or do her backers want status quo? This is what we are going to see. If the backers want status quo, then it's just going to be status quo. If her backers actually want some change, then she wants change. She has the kind of strong support that she feels, I can go forth.
Absolutely.
And I have the support.
This particular pot was stirred adequately by Magufuli. And the question that we're raising, President Magufuli's tenure helped raise these questions and even introduce more. Because Tanzanians have had CCM has had first-hand experience of seeing someone who understands power and is willing to use it. They've seen what this person can do. And they can also see the end of it. They can also see how the people of Tanzania received this. And why did they receive it? Because prior to Magufuli, the lethargy that had set in, the status quo, business as usual, is something Tanzanians did not want. Because they did not see how it benefited them directly. His popularity rose against a background of all these negative things we've been saying. But the Tanzanians were saying it is okay. We don't care. Let those journalists be jailed. Let this happen. But we can see someone who seems to be working for our interest.
Jesus, make Tanzania great again.
Exactly.
What would Magufuli do?
What would Magufuli do? Exactly. What Kenyans were asking. Look at what is happening. If this was Magufuli,
what would he do?
Yes.
He would do something different.
Listen, what is it that leaders prior to him had done to disenfranchise, to distance themselves from the leadership, from the population?
From the people.
Because clearly they had no faith. That Fatma Karume mentioned an interesting point, 57%. CCM was like ANC in South Africa. And by the way, you can see the same process. ANC is losing popularity bit by bit by bit by bit. Why? You seem to have lost the popularity that you gained by not living up to the expectations.
You're losing the people.
You've lost them.
You're losing the people.
Yes. And then you're being forced now to use other tactics. By the time someone brings in the army to help you in an election, my friend, you also know that you're not as popular as you think. By the time you get 57%, if we're in Kenya, we'd ask you, where's your server?
Can you open it, please?
How exactly did you get here?
Yes.
If we look then at what Magufuli was doing in those 5 years and why he was, why he seemed to have been enjoying the popular support when he went around the country. And the way you're saying, previous two presidents maybe had gotten to a point where they had 20 years of progressively losing the people's trust.
Yes.
I think that it makes sense. By the time a president comes and says, look, our administrative headquarters is here, and we are not here. It's because this is what the government has sort of become. It had become a government where you work from wherever, work from home, work
and
from,
it doesn't matter.
And
from
if you're
Dubai,
actually working, it doesn't. We don't know.
I spoke to someone in Tanzania. In fact, just an ordinary taxi driver. So two things that he was saying. First of all, because of Magufuli ordering people out of Zanzibar back to government offices in Dodoma, he was losing business.
Darcy.
Yes, in Dar es Salaam. He was losing business because he was wondering, okay, so now surely these are the people who are calling me. And then he would give the experience. I would have a guy who is a cabinet minister. His family is in Zanzibar. His home is in Mwanza, Oko, Lake Victoria. And Dodoma is where he's supposed to be working. So he'd go to Mwanza. His family is in Zanzibar. He'd go to Dodoma, work. And then he calls him and tells him, now, listen, go pick my family. We meet at the airport. He goes, picks the family, takes them to the airport. Man comes from Mwanza or Dodoma. They meet at the airport. They board a flight. They go to Dubai. And then they come back. He calls him, tells him, come and pick us up from the airport.
Take the family
Take
back.
the family back. I'm going back.
But
this was every
Dodoma and
weekend.
Mwanza are not next door to each other.
No, they're not.
And Tanzania is a huge country.
It's a huge country geographically.
So he's saying he was enjoying all this. Because
course,
every
it's business
weekend,
for
this
him.
man, after the order was given, the family relocated. Because the man was not going to be coming. There's no allowance. There's no traveling out of the country. You must be in Dodoma. That happened. But he was saying, you see, that tells you how much we had lost. These guys were not working. These guys were just flying left, right, and center. Guy comes, they go, I don't know, to Singapore. Next time they're in Dubai. Next time they're spending a weekend here. That's all the government officials were doing. Hotels in Dar es Salaam were also complaining same. Before that, but now all the meetings were taking place in these hotels. Now these guys have gone back to, what are we doing? Who are we hosting here? The president has said no meetings. Balance is the balance scorecard here.
Whenever you set out to do the sort of thing Magufuli was doing, the one thing that you're guaranteed is you'll make very many enemies. You're actually saying, folks, we actually took a note to do certain things and we're clearly not doing it.
How about we do it, huh?
Why don't we just start by doing it? Okay? And when he talked about cutting privileges and reducing expenditure, man, he actually did. Unfortunately, you don't have to add in a quip. Unlike us. Unlike us.
Wow.
We talk about reducing expenditure, then we look for another loan.
To increase it.
Yes.
It's nice, eh?
That's how we do it.
This is how we do it.
Remember, when President Kibaki came in, there were very few positive adjectives that were attributed to him by the political class. He's this and the other and this and the other. And what did he do? He turned the country around completely. Showed us what you could do. Showed us what you could even do with your taxes. What I loved about it, he showed us just how much money this country actually has.
Yes.
And what can be done when you utilize the money. There was a year there when we didn't even need to borrow money. Can you
Didn't actually
imagine?
borrow.
No.
But at the same time, even when he was doing this, and there was no need for, certain things like, muzzling the press. He allowed people to say whatever it was they wanted to say. He allowed the freedom of expression. We didn't see that there were huge issues having to deal with human rights, this, that, abuse across the country. What did the man do? He focused on doing his job.
Doing the job.
He was doing his job.
And let other people do theirs.
Get the job done.
Yes, you
That's
do.
bottom
Media,
line.
do your thing. You do your thing,
Let
and
me
I
do
will
mine.
do this.
And then let's see at the end of the day what the scorecard looks like.
Do you know how far he took it? If you happen to be even a close ally or a friend, and you seem to have broken the law, and the law is against you, he sat back.
I said, let the law deal with you.
He sat back. In all honesty, the space that had been fought for by so many people in this country for the freedom, we saw it being put into practice in little bits and pieces when Moi was in government. Kibaki came in, that space literally opened up. Literally. And that is why when there was an attempt at a clawback by this particular government, man, the resistance.
It's huge.
They realized, here, I think let's just go with this flow and find other ways of doing it. But they were willing to be repressive, and they even tried. But man, they were fought and fought and fought.
Okay. As we come to conclusion of the show and the week, just with one word, do you think President Suluhu is going to fuata nyayo za Magufuli, or do you think she's going to change?
That one I can say categorically change.
He said one word, man.
Yes. Change.
Fuata nyayo.
No.
Or change?
Fortanya is one.
Fortanya or change?
Fortanya is one change. It's exactly one word.
I'm going to go with change.
Change. I'm going to go change.
Change?
By her being female Muslim from Zanzibar and president, that's already change.
Okay. Proverb, as we say goodbye.
Despite the beauty of the moon, sun, and the stars, the sky also has the threatening thunder and striking lightning.
All right. Keep it right here. Have a lovely weekend. More music coming, and then Monique will be here in the afternoon. And there's a new show starting this weekend. Is it or is it not?
It is.
Okay. From Saturday. But watch our social media platforms for details on that. Coming up, good morning, and thank you very much for tuning in.